Okay, hello and welcome to our weekly live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and today is February 13th, 2019. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning here, welcome. Joe, hooray, hopping on. T-Mac, hello. Mohammed, Kamami, Steve, hello. J-Cat, Frankendoll, that's a cute screen name. So before we get going, oh gosh, hold on. I have rearranged my desktop in yet another attempt to improve the sound now that I'm back here in this office. And yeah, anyways, so you'll have to let me know if the sound is any better in this video. But before we get started, I wanted to go over, I've dug up some self-love quotes. And, tomorrow is Valentine's Day for most people, or I should say people in the United States. So I thought it would be good to talk about some self-love quotes and kind of the significance of them, because it's really important, that we love ourselves just as much as we care for anybody else. So the first quote I have a total of 8. Okay, first one is, remember always that you not only have the right to be an individual, you have the obligation to be one. And that's from Eleanor Roosevelt. I think that's so powerful. There is only one you. There's so much truth to that. There is only one you. You have your own strengths, your own weaknesses, your own individuality. And that truly is what we're here for on this planet, is to just be the highest and greatest expression of yourself, of who you are. Oh, wait, number 2, love yourself first and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. And that's by Lucille Ball, which is another fantastic quote. And I agree completely, because if we don't love ourselves, then we don't think that we're worth anything or capable of anything. And so we just don't participate in life very much. So, okay, number 3, a man cannot be comfortable without his own approval. And that's from Mark Twain. And I love that because he's so right on. We can never truly be comfortable until we approve of ourselves. Getting approval from other people is nice. It's nice to have that validation, but we can never truly relax and just be comfortable until we approve of ourselves and what we're doing. He's so spot on about so many things. Okay, next one. When you recover or discover something that nourishes your soul and brings joy, care enough about yourself to make room for it in your life. Love that one too. That's by Jean Bolin. And I think, it's understanding what nourishes our soul and brings joy it's something I think a lot of us tend to lose as we get older. Children do this stuff naturally. And as adults, we tend to lose that because life gets serious. You have bills and, you might have children of your own or mortgage or all this responsibility. And we can put things that actually nourish our soul and bring us joy on the back burner. And I just think this one is so right on, because it's important that we care enough about ourselves to make room for fun, to make room for those things that nourish our soul and bring joy in our life. It's a really big part of self-care, and frankly, something that I really struggle with, but I'm working on that. Okay, next one. Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. And that's by Parker Palmer. And again, agree completely with that. Self-care is about taking care of yourself. And it's simply good stewardship of the only gift you have. I think that's well said. Okay, the next one says, why should we worry about what others think of us? Do we have more confidence in their opinions than we do our own? And that's by Brigham Young. I think that's definitely some food for thought, because I think so many of us do tend to place more, to give more weight to the opinions of other people than we do ourselves. And it's so, back to that first quote, it's so important that we're able to approve of ourselves and, just settle into being yourself. Okay, let's see here. Next one is, too many people overvalue what they are not and undervalue what they are. That's from Malcolm Forbes. And again, so true. I think we all go through life often so focused on everything that's wrong with us, everything that we're always trying to fix or improve. And it's very rare that people tend to slow down and just see everything that's good and right about themselves. So it's important. It's important to really understand, to be in tune with your strengths as more so than your weaknesses. Let's see. Okay, last one. You have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. That's by Louise Hay. So again, love that one too. It's amazing. And, that one is probably more profound than it even sounds. If you're familiar at all with Louise Hay, she was really big on doing mirror work, doing affirmations in the mirror, making eye contact with yourself, and really she placed a really large emphasis on self-love. And she was an early pioneer of that. She was doing this in the 70s. So, and I think she's absolutely spot on. Criticizing ourselves doesn't get us very far. When you start approving of yourself and you start learning to truly love yourself, flaws and all, and realize that you matter, that you have value because you're here, you're a living creature on this planet, and you are uniquely you, like you have value. When you start approving of yourself, when you see that, it's just everything changes. It truly, truly does. So, okay, so that's what I had for some self-love quotes. Let me go back over to the chat and see what's going on in here. Let's see. Yes, Rob says, oh, it's lovely. And yes, self-love can be seen as good self-stewardship. It really is. It's so funny. We respect when we take good care of our things, right? We hang up our clothes, we might clean our room, we might, wax our car, do these things because we want it to last. We want to take care of them. And so often we don't even think about what we need, like what we need to actually take care of us so we can stick around as long as possible. So, oh, well, thank you. Anju says, you're so spot on. You know so much. Well, thank you. I don't know about that, but thank you. It's fun learning from you. Well, good deal. We're glad you're here. Missouri Cowboy says, howdy, everyone. Bummer. I only come here for y'all's approval of me. Externals, That's funny. It is nice. I have to say, speaking of which, external validation. I was just telling Travis, I got, hold on, let me take some tea. My throat is really scratchy today and I don't know why. Okay. Oh, yeah, that actually is much better. So I have my first book out as an audiobook, and that's been a whole different learning adventure for me because I don't know how to narrate a book. I don't know how to, there was a lot of things I didn't know how to do. Anyways, so I was kind of holding my breath as the reviews were coming in for it because, you don't know how it's going to be received. So I got just just this amazing review today that just really, it just meant so much to me. And so let me read you guys this review so you can share in this moment. I just seriously just is so flattering and awesome. This person does not leave their name, but they're from Pennsylvania. And they say, I have never bookmarked a book so much in my entire life. Truly, I know it is a cliche, but this audiobook has been a life-changing listen. The advice, stories, the voice, it is all delivered perfectly. I think I'm going to listen to it again now because it's that important to drill this information into my head. If you suspect you are with a narcissistic person, listen to this. You will get clarity. And that just, it's so like rewarding and encouraging when you're getting reviews from strangers. Because, you know, I guess when you put out a video, or for me, when I put out some books, your friends and the people that have been with you for years and years, they'll go, they're like the first wave. Like they'll go and leave reviews, and they're oftentimes really supportive, and which is so nice. But you have to kind of wonder, like, do they really mean that, or are they just saying that? And so to get a review like that from somebody I don't know, who didn't leave their name, and it just, I don't know, that just made my day. Thank you. Yeah, Grace says that was a beautiful review. Yes, it really was. I was tearing up when I was reading it to Travis earlier, and I don't normally I'm very hesitant to read my reviews because you just have to really be in the right mindset. Because, and of course, getting bad reviews is all part of it, but I have to just really get grounded and kind of situated in myself and be open to any validity that the criticism has, so I can do better the next go around. And so yeah, it's just, it's tough. It's tough, but when you get reviews like that, it's really rewarding. Yeah, Dora says, do something nice for yourself tomorrow. We didn't make any plans. What are you guys? Is anybody doing anything tomorrow? We have a ton of snow here, and I'm not a fan of going out to restaurants when everybody else is going to be out there. It's really expensive, and the lines are long, and it's just not the place for me. So we're probably going to go out this weekend and do something. I don't know, probably just end up ordering pizza and watching a movie. The big night. Oh, well, good deal. Anju says, I'm grateful for this place. It saves me from a lot of troubles. I love that. Tyler, yes, that is a great idea. He says, we should all do something loving for ourselves and report back next week. I love that. Yes. So for those of you that are up for Tyler's challenge, let's do that. How about everybody do at least one thing that's really loving for yourself and report back next Wednesday? I need to write this down. And oh my gosh, my desk, hold on. Okay. Self-love next Wednesday. Put that on my monitor. Good deal. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll down. Ooh, Frankendoll says, I'm making myself chocolate truffles. Well, that sounds delightful. Ah, hooray. I'm prepping for a colonoscopy. Oh my gosh. That does not sound like fun at all, but good to get those things taken care of for sure. Grace is taking the kids to an ice cream shop. Let's see. Honey asks, which country are you from? I'm not sure if you're asking me or if you're talking to somebody else in the chat, but I'm here in the United States and I'm in Michigan. But there's people from all over in here, which is so cool. I just got a text from Travis. He says, so we may need to celebrate Valentine's Day on Friday. One of his good friends is having a birthday party on Saturday, and he wants to do axe throwing. And I should never participate in that. Like, that is a 911 call waiting to happen. I have the worst aim that it's not, I throw like a 2-year-old. It's awful. And so no, I said, I will be more than happy to go and we can bring cake, but I am not throwing axes. It's just not going to end well. Funny. Let's see. Okay, Miss Kim says, I found out in December that my ex planned a vacation with his new supply in January to the same place in the resort that I had planned since July. He knew about it when I left him in August. Is this translation? I think you mean triangulation. I guess it depends if, I mean, it could be if he knows that you're still watching things and if you're still involved and if there's a potential to kind of create this love triangle. I think more often than not, this kind of stuff is really common. And it's very common for narcissists in particular to do things like this, where they'll go for somebody's soft spot to inflict the maximum amount of pain. So it's very common that they will marry, you've planned your dream wedding with them, and then they go have that exact same wedding with somebody else. And also, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think it's partly that because they know it'll get to you, but also I think it's partly because they just don't care. Like, they make no effort. So you went to all of this effort to find this amazing place. He just kind of stole the idea and has taken credit for it. So it's kind of this win, easy win for him. The best thing that you can do in these situations is just avoid social media. Don't let it get to you. I know it's not easy to do. Don't talk about how much it bothers you to anybody that it could potentially get back to him. Because if that happens, you're going to keep seeing this kind of stuff. He's not going to stop. He's just going to do it more. So thank you, Manju. Says Dana, thank you for all your advice and help. You're a big help for me. Good deal. I'm very glad about that. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Me's Cat says, hey, Dana, I left you a long question up higher in the chat. Okay, I am on the hunt for it now. Me's Cat. I'm looking. Did you? Because I don't see it. I see it when you say hi. Does anybody see Me's Cat? Question. Super long question. I don't see it. Is there any way that you can copy and paste it in the chat again? $8:42. I don't have timestamps on anything. I literally don't see it. If anybody else is seeing that, can you copy and paste it into the chat? Okay, hold on. I'm getting somebody's sending some texts here with questions. Okay, yeah, I already got that one. Okay, good. T-Max says, I don't see the question either. Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me. Agata says, Dana, I texted you the question. Is that, I don't think that's the same person, and I just deleted what you texted me. And if it was, the question we just covered wasn't them. I'm going to move on. I don't know. If somebody can copy and paste, let me know. Okay, Surf Smurf says, I'm having a really rough time at the moment, emotionally, financially. The depression is overwhelming. My family doesn't want me around and they all think I'm crazy. I'm preparing to move to Florida because my mom is there. And now I understand why she moved so far away. And I was excited at first. But now I am terrified that it won't change anything, that people there won't want me either. I have been crying for 2 days and I can't seem to stop. So I think it's really difficult if you have a whole family dynamic, which it's just really dysfunctional. Nobody really gets along. There's a lot of manipulation. There's no healthy connection there. Then sometimes moving, like you saying, your mom moved to Florida, you can see why. Sometimes putting that padding of a zip code or several zip codes between you and them can really help. So I guess I wouldn't jump the gun too much and think, okay, well, what if these other people in Florida don't like me either? I think the right people will like you. So it's really just about finding your tribe. And then I think also keeping in mind that out there's always going to be 10% of the people that are going to just think the world of you. There's going to be 10% of the people out there that absolutely hate you, that no matter what you do, they're not going to like it. They just will not like you. And then 80% of the people are going to fall somewhere in between. And so as you're meeting people and the same thing is for you, right? So you're not going to like everybody either. So as you're out there, you're meeting new friends and whatnot, paying attention to, okay, this is my person. This isn't my person. That's totally okay. And then spending more time trying to find more of your people. But I don't know. I've really enjoyed every time you've been here on the chat. So I don't think there's any like deep-seated, thing about you that somehow makes you unlikable. You've been here for quite a while. So I don't see that. I think you just need to find other people. Surf Smurf says, yeah, they all get along with each other. I'm just different. Yeah. Well, I'm one of the different ones too in my family, and I get how difficult that can be, but that doesn't mean anything other than you're just different from them. That's all that means. And they're just not going to get you and you're not going to get them. And, if they weren't family, they're people that you probably wouldn't ever spend time with because there's nothing there in common. So I think once you kind of see that for what it is and you just don't take it personally, it can be a lot easier. So I think it's important to just kind of keep perspective in all of this. If it's going to be a new place, you're starting over, that can be very exciting. It can be also very overwhelming. Meetup groups, I'm a big fan, meetup.com can be a great way to get out there, get some new hobbies, get to know people in your area, and hopefully do a lot of fun things along the way. Yeah, Roasted Studios said, Surf, that doesn't mean you aren't likable. Lovely, oh, that's cute. Lovely says, hello, first time in the live chat. Well, welcome. Question, how do we stop attracting narcissists? I am tired. After 47 years, I come from a family of narcissists and hugs, Surf Smurf. Good deal. Let me get some more tea here. I'm a big fan of, it doesn't matter who we attract. We're all going to attract a wide range of people. We have no control over that. What we do have control over is who we're attracted to and how long we let other people stay in our lives. So the main thing that protects us from having narcissists continue to come into our lives is just healthy boundaries. So, and I know that at first it can seem like they're coming out of the woodwork. Now that you've stumbled across the concept of narcissism and sociopathy and all of this stuff, probably a lot of things are making sense, and your eyes are a lot more open to it than they ever were before. And because of that, because you're now aware of it, you're seeing it. It's always been there. You're just seeing it for what it is. So, and that can cause a person to feel all kinds of, questioning themselves and self-doubt. And is this really going on? Is this person really problematic? Is it me? Is it them? I can't tell. All of that. The biggest thing to protect you from all of the wrong people is boundaries. So it's moving slow. So when we're recovering from getting tangled up with manipulators, it's important. We have to do things different. And one of those big things is not trusting people immediately. So it's just trust is something that's earned. It's not something that's just freely given. It's given with appropriate behavior over a consistent period of time. So when you're meeting new people, especially if it's online and especially if it's dating, because there are so many insincere people out there that are partaking in online dating. So going really slow, not getting emotionally invested in a person right away, slowly opening up, making sure that you're setting the pace of how much you're letting them know about you, of just how much time you're spending with them, all of these things. So taking your time to build trust with them, making sure that it's appropriate, not being so driven off of how much you like them. Look at actions over than words is a huge thing. And if you have a clear idea of your deal breakers, then it's a lot easier to cut bait and just move on when somebody starts doing stuff that's deal breakers. And that's another thing. I would really encourage you, this was a big lesson for me, really encourage you to tighten up your deal breakers. So I think a lot of people, their deal breakers tend to be, if there's somebody cheats on me or if somebody hits me, I'm done. It's problematic if we're waiting until that point. So we can back things way up. So my new deal breakers now are, I don't do squirrely behavior. I don't do any crazy making. So if we're having, if communication's, not going anywhere, if conversations can't get resolved, if they're, how are they handling your boundaries? How do they handle it when you say no? Do they fly into a rage? Do you get the silent treatment? Do they start putting you down? Do they make it seem like you're paranoid or jealous or insecure? These kinds of things. So paying attention to how they handle your boundaries, paying attention to, how they interact with other people, if their behavior is appropriate with other people, these kinds of things. Huh. People are so strange on the internet. Okay. Yeah. Sam says, sadly, I've been seeing a friend get entangled with a dirtbag because she's trying hard to find the good in him and has let him mistreat her verbally often. Yeah. It's really difficult for any one of us to see a situation clearly. And it's hard. It's hard when we want it to be something other than it is, when we want it to be, we were really attracted to that person, or we want this dynamic to work out, and we start seeing red people. Everybody does this in every situation, with jobs, with, if you've listened to any stories from people about, getting involved in cults, gangs, any type of problematic situation, it always starts off with, oh, I thought it was going to be this one thing, and then it ended up being another. And it's just really difficult for us to walk away when this other person seems so amazing and ideal, and we get caught up in, well, maybe they can change, and, I need to change, and all of this stuff. And it just hooks you. And Yeah, it's just not good. So, okay, Mies Cat says, Dana, it said my comment was too long. Is there a limit? I think in all YouTube chats, yeah, it's 200 characters. And so it'll turn a different color. I think it'll turn black when you, or red maybe, if you've reached that limit, the character limit. That's a great question. Missouri Cowboy says, Dana, can you discuss if we should be looking for the best in everyone? I think you should be looking for the truth in everyone. So if somebody, and seeing their behavior for what it is, everybody's going to have a mix of problematic behavior and healthy behavior. It's just where along that spectrum their behavior is that makes an ocean of difference. So it's a lot of people are like, oh, I need to focus on the good. I need to, do that. But if we can't gloss over the major stuff, especially if it's major deal breaker stuff. Like your, I don't know, your uncle could really be a really great, funny guy, but if he's creepy or if he has a jail history for child molestation, that has to be a deal breaker. That always has to be given a lot more weight than anything else that he's doing. That's just one example. Obviously, this pertains to women too, but seeing a person's behavior for what it is, giving the weight that those deal breakers deserve, and erring on the side of caution. To only focus on the good in a person is to really, you're glossing over so much, So, yeah, Roasted Studio says, yeah, the good does not negate the bad. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Trip says, I drew a boundary with one of my neighbors. It was a bit much, and I was kind of shocked at myself. I'm wondering if I was triggered or the months of gray rock caused it. Were you gray rocking this neighbor, or were you gray rocking somebody else? And I guess regardless, I think this is a stage and when people get to when they're starting to set boundaries. At first, we tend to go from being very passive and we tend to swing to the opposite side of the spectrum and have these bouts of aggression. And those bouts, it's almost like an overreaction, like an overcorrection, I guess is what you could call it. So when we do that, when we kind of overcorrect and we become aggressive with somebody, it's generally trying to figure out how to be assertive. Being assertive is difficult. It's not something that's taught. It's not really something that's practiced by a whole lot of people. And it can be very uncomfortable because there's a lot of, it can feel very risky to just be honest with people, even if they're people that we're not emotionally invested in, like your next door neighbor. It still can be incredibly difficult. It's easier, I think a lot of people, it's easier to kind of go through life and lie, just all of these small lies. Like your neighbor asks you for a favor and you lie and tell them that you have to work or that you're not going to be home that day or that you're sick, instead of just owning it and just saying, I don't have the time, or that doesn't work for me, or whatever it is. It's difficult to just be in our truth. So it takes practice. I wouldn't, I just would kind of make a note of it and then doing what you're doing. So you're kind of doing this like a post game day analysis of what happened there. Like, what did I do? What caused that? How can the next time I am faced with setting a boundary with somebody and being assertive, how can I do this differently next time so that I don't become aggressive? And a lot of times that aggressiveness comes from stuff that's been bottling up inside of us for a very long time. And then they say something and it's just like, the straw on the camel's back, and we just snap at them and they're caught off guard and we're caught off guard because we're being so reactive. Okay. Marissa says, my ex is appealing my 3-year restraining order against him. We broke up in 2016. Why would anyone do this? Oh, it could be for any number of reasons. I think a lot of times they want to be difficult. They don't want to own their behavior. It might be on his record somewhere, and he's trying to apply for a job that requires some sort of background check. That might be part of it. It's very, I mean, my goodness, if you're in the support group at all, you've probably heard like there's story after story after story of people who are like, I cannot believe this. My ex has been stalking me, has done all kinds of things to put me in the hospital due to like domestic violence. And now he's saying that I'm the violent one, that I'm abusive, and he's trying to get a restraining order against me. What on earth is going on? And that's the level of just delusion and dysfunction that you're dealing with. Really kind of nothing more, nothing less. Like you're just not dealing with a person who is sharing the same reality as the rest of us. And they have no accountability for their actions. There's no responsibility, and there's no real change. I wouldn't hold my breath for change. So if you have a restraining order, if you have to go back to court, if you have to go through all of this again, I would get your support system together. I would act like, just stay cool, calm, and collected, realize he's going to say a bunch of things that are lies, and that he's going to say a bunch of things to push your buttons. And instead of getting upset about that, which that's going to be kind of difficult to not get upset about it, instead, I would just prepare yourself emotionally for this as much as you possibly can ahead of time. So if it happens, which it probably will, you're not letting this get to you. You're viewing it as, yes, of course he does this. Of course he has crazy behavior because he's crazy. So why would I expect anything less? Of course, he's not going to act responsible and accountable and sane. If he did that, we wouldn't be sitting here. Right. So like, you're no longer surprised by the continual craziness that is a manipulator like that. Okay. Let's see here. Jennifer says, can you give a list of deal breakers? It's hard to know where to start. Okay, that's a great question. And deal breakers, just like boundaries, just like standards, are going to be a very individual thing. And they are going to grow and change throughout your life just because you're going to grow and change. So the more you become self-aware, the more you become in tune with basically how you feel. What nourishes you and what drains you, what's healthy for you, what's toxic for you. That's a good place to start. Just getting in tune with that and being honest with yourself. I think so many of us have been lying to ourselves for decades, not even realizing that we've been lying to ourselves. Because like Missouri Cowboy had brought up earlier, it was always that mindset of, oh, well, you've got to see the good in everybody, and you've got to forgive and forget, and commitment is forever. There's all of these platitudes thrown at us. And we just have been gobbling them up thinking, well, this is just scientific fact. This is how we have to interact with the world. That worldview works to a point. And then when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. And that's when we have these huge kind of awakening moments that bring us to our knees, and we find ourselves in this position. We find ourselves in these support groups and in a therapist office or in a life coach's office or what have you. And we're trying to figure it all out. So really getting in tune with what's nourishing, what gives you energy, and what drains you of energy. If you are familiar at all with the very lovely woman, Marie Kondo, her book on, this does pertain, her book on the magic of tidying up. It's about organizing. And she has this one phrase that is just a power phrase, and it just cuts through so much. And it is simply, does this spark joy? So as you're going through and cleaning your home, does this spark joy in me? And if not, then why am I hanging on to it? So I think that's a really kind of great way to do an inventory on our life of, okay, how do I really feel about this? How do I really feel about these people? How do I really feel about this job? How do I really feel about the hobbies I have, or how I'm living my life? Getting really honest with yourself. So let me give you some examples as far as deal breakers go. So my current main, like, broad brush categories for deal breakers are no active addictions, no abuse of any kind, no adultery or cheating, and no rotten attitude. I don't want to be around somebody who's consistently negative and who will tell me all of the reasons why something can't work. I don't want that in my life. All of that stuff is just a big time suck. And it's not to say that, people that are struggling with addiction, it doesn't mean that they're bad or wrong. It just means that they've got stuff that they need to work out before they even have the emotional space to be in a relationship. So and it makes it really easy. Like, these are the deal breakers. And then I would also add to that, with the attitude part, no crazy making. And I just have found there's too many people out there, and I don't have this, I don't enjoy feeling angry or perpetually confused, or like somebody's continually trying to bait me into an argument, or they're trying to provoke a fight. Life's too short, and there's just too many other people out there. So thankfully, those people have been very few and far between in my life. But when they do surface, I just have to walk away. I have to really distance myself, because there's nothing there. Wait, what? What did I miss here? Let's see. Okay, so also one of the deal breakers, like I was talking about earlier, squirrely behavior or crazy making behavior. The old me thought that I needed to wait around until I had concrete proof that they were indeed cheating or stealing or lying or what have you. The new me, I don't deal with squirrely or crazy making. So I cut that stuff off. If it can't be resolved with a conversation, if they spin things around, if they're avoiding, if they're deflecting, if they're doing all of these things, I'm just done, because it's not even that at that point, it's not even the situation itself. It doesn't even matter if they're cheating or not cheating. The fact is that they are incapable of having sincere, open, honest communication. And so I don't even need to find out with certainty if they are in fact cheating. I just know right away, or lying or stealing or whatever it is they might be doing. We're not on the same page. And that's the page that they're on is not what I'm wanting in my life. So getting clear, it helps. Does that help? Hindsight POV says people who throw tantrums are dangerous. Stay away. Yes, that is a very valid point. I'm a big fan of when you're seeing childlike behavior in an adult, that's a big problem. That's the tip of the iceberg. That stuff is not normal. So this person has missed major developmental milestones, emotionally, intellectually, socially. This is not stuff that you can fix. This isn't stuff that anybody can fix. This isn't stuff that's going to change with the flip of a light switch either. So we outside looking in, it's so obvious to us, right? We're like, oh, well, why don't you just stop yelling? It's easy because we're not that person, right? Like there's deep-seated reasons as to why they're behaving the way that they're behaving. And I mean, their personality has formed around all of that. I mean, it's not, it's just, that's a project. That's taking on a massive project to try to even be there to change somebody else. So those kinds of things, if you're finding yourself having to explain the basics of adult behavior, It's not okay for you to throw a tantrum. It's not okay for you to spit or hit or threaten or stomp off or, act like a teenager. You're not going to talk to me. You're going to do silent treatment. You're going to lie and steal and sneak around and do all these things. You're not dealing with a mature person. So I'm a big fan of, you see that stuff for what it is, because you're going to keep seeing it if you stick around, and it's going to keep getting worse. It's just like a bratty child who's never had any structure or boundaries, except they're dangerous because now they're an adult. And especially if they're bigger than you, or they're stronger, or they're just more aggressive, it's like that child who never had structure or boundaries or guidance, and now they're an adult, and you're trying to implement boundaries and structures and guidance. It just irritates them and it frustrates you. It doesn't get anywhere. And that stuff can really escalate to a place of, this is when the violence happens, is it starts escalating because you're feeling frustrated because you're looking to reach a solution and they're looking to avoid accountability. And when those two things meet, they go together like oil and water. And that's why these conversations never get resolved. That's why you keep having the same behaviors over and over and over again. Doreen says, I love Marie Kondo. Yes, I know. Isn't she fantastic? I do too. Let's see. She's got some YouTube videos if anybody's interested in checking her out. Anju, that's some great examples. Says, regarding boundaries, mine are not staying on the phone or texting constantly and men touching me inappropriately. Yeah, that's completely valid. Another boundary that I have is, I haven't had this so much with women, but with men, calling me pet names, especially right away, whether it's in a professional setting, that really gets my goat, or if it's in a dating setting where, and again, like I've been dating Travis for a while. This is before I was dating Travis. Where you send a few emails back and forth, and then they text you and it's, oh, hey babe, hey doll, hey sweetie, and then signing it with like X's and O's and stuff. And it's like, what? Back up. I do not know you. So that kind of stuff we're not just going there like that. Or if they're wanting, nudes or just inappropriate stuff, it's just a waste of time is what that is. Let's Be Real says pet names, like cute names. I do that in a relationship. Yes. Okay. But you do that in a relationship. You don't do that fresh out of the gate, right? When you first meet somebody, those pet names are Travis and I have tons of pet names for each other. Though that stuff it's symbolic of, a level of connection that you have with that other person. Just like if your friends have nicknames for you, if a total stranger started calling me, I have the one nickname, I have a few friends that always call me D. I don't know. I have no idea why. Well, I mean, I do because my name is Dana, but why they needed to shorten a 4-letter name to a 1-letter name, I don't know. But if somebody else were to call me that, I would think it would be really strange. Do you see what I'm saying? Or if professionally, I had this one guy, I think I've told you this story before. He was a very nice man. And when I was a nurse, he would have to call period. He was the manager of a group home. And so he was always calling about medications and all these kind of concerns about the clients at the home and whatnot. And he called all of the nurses sweetie, honey, babe, doll, this kind of stuff. It was totally inappropriate. And we would confront him about it. There was one time, I don't remember. I know I had confronted him a handful of times about it, but saying, I'd prefer it if you just call me by my name. Doll, sweetie. Oh, well, and he would fight it. He's like, well, that's just my generation. That's just how we would talk to women. I don't mean anything by it, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's fine. but don't call me those names. Because he didn't call the female doctors by those names. And I guarantee you he wouldn't, do you know what I mean? It was just the nurses that he took that liberty with. So we had to really nip that in the bud. Like, okay, yeah, you may have all of these reasons as to why you do that. We're telling you, we're setting this boundary that we don't want you to do it with us. So if you can't do this, then we're going to have to end the conversation, because I'm not going to be talked to like that. It's just not appropriate. So Doris says, me too, Dana. People say D to me. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. It's really strange. Okay, let's see. Oh, James. Hello. Yes, James. I love your new name. Hold on. I'm going to make you a moderator. James's new name is James the Broviver. And by the way, just FYI, James is starting his own YouTube channel around narcissistic abuse. So it's James the Broviver, I believe. So check him out. He's going to be doing videos on a pretty regular basis. Let's see. Yeah, T-Max says, my ex calls every female waitress, store clerk, whatever, hun. Yeah. Yeah, right? Underground West says, I call my wife pet names, but not other women. Yeah, because you want to live to see another day, right? Like if you're married and I mean, that kind of stuff, that's a great way to be, to bring a lot of misery and pain into your life. And it's not appropriate, right? I mean, I'm joking, but it's disrespectful to your wife, right? So it sounds like you understand that, which is why you don't do it. Yeah. And that's the thing. Nobody else knows where our boundaries are. So for some people, they might really like those terms. Here's another example. They might really like those terms of endearment and not see anything wrong with them. When I worked in a nursing home and even in different group homes over the years, it was very common for other nurses or CNAs to talk to elderly people and call them, oh, sweetie, oh, honey, oh, sugar. And I don't think the intention was there to be condescending, but it really came across that way. And so that was one of my pet peeves of, nope, these are adults. They've been on this planet for 90 plus years. They've earned their respect. I think it's really important that we address them by their name and just be polite and be respectful. And if you develop that camaraderie with them, where you do have a nickname or, you end up kind of having those pet names and they're okay with it, that's another thing. It's just, I don't know, little things. It bothers some people, it doesn't bother other people. It's all about kind of knowing yourself and knowing your lines and then letting other people know, like, hey, I just, that kind of bugs me. Let's Be Real says, do you think after all of the abuse, we become obsessed with studying personality disorders? Yeah, I do. I think that's really common for a lot of people. And it makes sense, right? If you think about it, our brains they have the one main job your brain has is to keep you alive. It's to keep you safe. Everything else is a far second. So that's its primary job. And in order to do that, it's continually set to this low level of hypervigilance where it's continually scanning the environment for any potential threats. We're not aware that this is going on, but this is what's going on. So when something causes us pain, significant pain, that becomes something that our brain is kind of extra alert on. So it's doing extra duty. And so when we come across a person who has caused us so much pain and we start realizing, oh my gosh, our worldview about how people were in the world and how we interacted with them, our map of the world was incomplete. That's terrifying. And it's terrifying for your brain because now it's like, whoa, 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 time out. Well, if I was wrong about that, what else am I wrong about? And that's where a lot of this kind of freeze response comes from. And people tend to be very avoidant. They don't want to leave the house. It's part, oftentimes PTSD, but it's also part because your brain is trying to figure out how to keep you safe. Because now it's got to reprocess all of the information that it thought it understood. And so when people learn about, yes, a person's, we don't all have the same behavior. We don't all have the same potential for the same behavior. We don't all have the same desire for the same behavior. To a normal, decent person, that's a very foreign thing. Because we just think, well, why wouldn't somebody want to just live happily ever after? Like, why? Why do they need to bring all of this chaos and destruction and craziness into their life? Like, why wouldn't they just want to, enjoy it, right? And then when you realize, okay, yes, there's behavior that's so extreme and it's so frequent that it can be classified as a personality disorder, I think our brains latch onto that because then it's trying to learn more about what caused us pain so it can prepare us so we can avoid it in the future. I think that's why. That's a big part of why we become obsessive with that. This kind of stuff does tend to settle down in time. People do tend to switch gears and, focus on other things. But, and I should say, and I really encourage you, or I guess I should say, I want to just make it known that understanding problematic people is, it's good. It's good that you're aware that this is out there and how to protect yourself and kind of what these behaviors are like. But it's really even more important that you understand yourself and you're able to get in tune with yourself. So I think a big part of healing is really focusing on self-awareness and getting back in tune with that. We all have this internal compass. Thank goodness we're born with it. It's just inherent in who we are. It's just like any other animal in their instincts. We have our own instincts. So your inner self knows deep down, what's safe and what's dangerous, what's nourishing for you, what's toxic for you. And then a big part of our job is to get back in tune with that and to follow what is safe and follow what nourishes us. So, okay, let's see here. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, Pink Pixie. How awful. Says, I was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. My narcissist said he loved me and he would help me get through it. He broke up with me the next day and moved in with another woman. Please help. I am so sick and so sad. Oh, I am so sorry that you're having to go through cancer and somebody like this. That's just, are there any support groups in your area? When did you find out about this? This is, I'm guessing, a fairly recent thing? And are there support groups in your area for those that are struggling with cancer? And is this something that you can go to and start getting some support? Do you have a support system at all where you're living? Last Friday. Oh my goodness. Okay, this just happened last Friday. No support groups here at the small town. Well, okay, so so you were told that you only have a few months to live. Is that correct? She says, I'm meeting with the social worker at the cancer center. Okay. Yes, that's true. Okay. So Okay, so you have a social worker at the hospital. I would definitely let the social worker know what's going on and see if they have any resources that you can tap into during this time. And there might be some support groups online. Facebook might be a good place to check them out, or you can Google for it. Might even be helpful for like your specific type of cancer to Google and see if there's any online support groups since you live in a small town. Getting that support, I think, it's just really, really important. As far as Agatha was saying that you were looking for closure, these people, his behavior is so outrageous and so selfish and so inappropriate. It's really just speaks to the jaw-dropping lack of empathy and lack of sincere connection. And it's important that you see his behavior as a reflection of him. It's not a reflection of you. And it's one of the worst, most hurtful things that we can go through in life is to fall in love with somebody who lacks empathy and is unable to form a deep connection. This is why they're able to flit from relationship to relationship and with seemingly no care. There's just no care in the world because there was never any sincere connection to begin with on their end. And that, like I said, that's just one of the most hurtful things that a person can go through to be on the receiving end of that. But so I think as far as closure goes, we have to make our own closure. So you might try writing some letters that you're never going to send him. Write everything down, exactly how you're feeling, and then burn those letters. If there's certain items in your home that remind you of him, I would consider burning those or taking them out in the backyard and smashing them. These kinds of things where getting that anger and that rage out of your system and giving yourself the closure that you need. So, and if there's anything that we can do here in this chat, let us know if there's any way that we can be emotionally supportive to you during this time. Okay, let me scroll up and see here. Crystal says, he knows she only has a short time to live and he still disregarded her. I can't even absorb this. Yeah, it's their level of selfishness and just their behavior. It knows no end. There's no end to the calloused indifference that they have. Things, I was writing in my book today. I'm working on this book called The Narcissist's Playbook, and it's all about manipulation. And I was writing this one section today about people getting caught up with these manipulators and how to try to avoid this the next time and all of these things. And I was really trying to hammer home the point that anybody can get tangled up with these people, especially if it's not even on your radar. And, this is my world. I am in this topic, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, kind of narcissistic abuse as a whole, day in and day out, 7 days a week. And I'm up to my neck in it every single day. And I am continually surprised by some of the things that I hear. And my jaw just falls open. I just cannot believe that somebody would do something like that. And so I have to think like, okay, if I'm in this every single day and I'm still caught off guard, what must it be like for a person who is not familiar at all with this topic or is fairly new to this topic? It's just hard. I think what I'm saying, however familiar you are with this topic, even if you've lived it yourself, their behavior will find new lows, and it's just absolutely disgusting and horrific. Yeah. And James says, and this is why we are all here. They are truly sick and have zero morals. Yeah. Just complete indifference to the pain that they create. Yes, that's a great advice. Agatha says, I am sorry, I don't know what exactly will help, but I know whatever I deal with, venting about it, angering helps a lot. And I also just try to love myself as much as I can each day. Yes, I think the tripling up on your self-care and your self-love right now is so huge. Pink Pixie says, this discard hurts so much. What to do regarding the discard? I think it's feeling the feelings. I don't know if there's really any way around it. It's realizing that you're going to feel a mix of feelings, understandably so. You're probably going to feel anger. You're going to feel rage, I would imagine, profound sadness, depression. I mean, there's going to be a wide range of emotions that are going to surface, and you might go through a handful of different emotions in the same day, and all of that's okay. It's just, I would just view it as it's all part of the pain that goes with loving a person who's incapable of love. It's like falling in love with a brick wall, or, a scarecrow. Like there's just nothing there. There's nothing there inside of them. And it's not you. And it's not you. It's not you. Okay, let's see. Yeah. And Tim says, I would personally block him, but it's your choice. I would agree with that. If you can block him, I think right now your main focus needs to be on what is going to bring as much peace in your life as possible. You want positive things, peace, joy, contentment, nourishment. That's the direction to head into. There truly is, there's no conversation that you could have with somebody who's done such a selfish thing. There's no words that he could say that would make it okay. So I think I'm really realizing that there's nothing, the closure, the desire that we have for closure is something that we just have to give ourselves. You're never going to get anything sincere or of any depth from somebody like that. They just don't have it. It's their limitation. Pink Pixie says, I will block him tonight. Thank you, everyone. Please be careful. He made me sick, literally. I would believe it. The stress and all of it can really do that to a person. So it's your emotional safety and sanity matter, because that stuff, it can spill over into physical ways. And that stress can come out in all different kinds of ways. Well, thank you, Trip. Says, thanks for everything, Dana. Thank you for the live stream donation. I appreciate it. So Pink Pixie, do you think that you'll be able to be here on Wednesday nights? Is this something that we can help you, that we can just be here for you on, we'll be here 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for 3 hours every Wednesday. So if you want to come by and just say hi and vent, or let us know what's going on, or whatever you're comfortable sharing, we're here. So I guess please know that. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Janie says, what I have learned is that women are incredibly attracted and drawn to narcissistic men, especially during dating. What I don't agree with is this victim mentality. You choose narcissists over good men. So, okay, let's discuss that. A lot of time, well, okay. God, where to even begin with this? Narcissism can manifest in a wide variety of ways. Sometimes it can come across where a person's really arrogant, they're brash, they're self-absorbed, they're just kind of like, quote unquote, that guy or that girl at the party. They're just insufferable. Other times it comes across as very charming, very sincere. I would say more often than not, it tends to come across, a lot of people, men and women, tend to misread a lot of their behavior. So we can confuse like their level of persistence with sincerity when it's not. It's controlling, scary behavior. We can confuse their controlling attitude for them being caring. And of course, this whole time, all of the person on the receiving end of this, their boundaries are being slowly eroded. So it's this mentality of anything, because they lack accountability. And if you're a normal, decent person, and you've never experienced anything like this, it's very common to think, well, this is something I can change. There's something I can do. Like, I cannot believe I am this difficult or this demanding or this, whatever. And a lot of people start bending themselves backwards to try to please their partner, not realizing that they're getting dragged into an abusive relationship. So, and then of course, then the narcissist or the sociopath's behavior tends to get worse and worse over time. So it's just the slow and steady erosion of the target's everything, of their boundaries, of their self-esteem, of their perceptions of reality, of their perceptions of other people, of the situation. They get to this place where you've been continually told that basically everything that you do and think is wrong. And so a lot of targets will then start looking towards this abusive person for answers, for guidance. Because it's sort of like, wow, I didn't realize that I was so off base, and that I was, because they'll start calling you. It's just the level of crazy making. Nobody gets involved in an abusive relationship knowingly. And just like nobody joins a cult knowingly. So while there is this, while people are a willing participant to it, there's no sincere informed consent. It's all nothing but manipulation and lies and games and threats and fear and obligation and guilt. And it just starts off slow, and then it starts building up steam. And if you're not aware of this, another challenge is a lot of people tend to have a very set view or understanding of what abuse is. And we're all like this, if we're experiencing something that doesn't match our idea of it, it's really difficult for us to identify it for what it is. So a lot of people think, oh, it's this abusive relationship. It's this, big tough guy in this like white wife beater tank top. And there's this woman with a black eye and she's huddled in the corner. That's abuse. But anything else is just couples issues. That's not the case. And so this is why men have a really difficult time identifying when they're being abused. It's why men and women have a really hard time identifying verbal and emotional and psychological abuse as it's happening, because it doesn't fit that image that they have in their mind. So there's lots of different factors at work. Well, okay, that is a great question. Up yours, Narc says, Dana, do you think that police and judges and so on just don't know what to do with people disordered like this? Well, I think even if they did know what to do with them, there's the way that our society is structured right now. Jail is only there for people that have been convicted of a crime. So if we're talking about personality disordered people, that are doing, narcissists or sociopaths generally, that are doing things that are so incredibly destructive, there's not a lot of laws out there yet for this kind of stuff. It's really difficult to prove verbal and emotional abuse. And odds, I mean, they're not going to get better by going to jail. They're not going to change, period, frankly, but they're definitely not going to get better. They're just going to get angrier. So then they would go to jail for, I don't know, let's just even say a year, let's say 6 years. Then what? Then they're back out again. So even with people, here's what's really scary. Even with people that are real, like outrageously problematic behavior, they're personality disordered to such an extreme degree, and or they have mental illness that is either unable to be treated or they refuse to take medication for it, or it's a combination of both. Like Charles Manson was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic, and I should say he had paranoid schizophrenia, and he also had antisocial personality disorder. So he had a mental illness and a personality disorder going on. The guy, Elizabeth Smart, the guy that kidnapped her, I think it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him. The guy that kidnapped her and, raped her continually for a very long time and had her living in his backyard and all of that. Him and his wife both went to prison. The prison psychiatrist, and I think also the psychologist, kept saying, we're like, this guy has no empathy. He has no remorse. He has no accountability. He needs to not be let out. Like, he is a danger to society. And what do? They let him out. I don't know if it was just due to like legal, certain paperwork that wasn't filed in time and somebody dropped the ball, or like what exactly happened there. But he's out. And that's so horrible. There's people that have homicidal ideation, that have these murderous thoughts and ideas, and there's no crime to have these thoughts and ideas. It's only becomes a problem when a person has a plan. But even then, what we do, at least here in the United States, is then if other people know, if other people call the police, if the police deem them a threat, then they might take them and put them on a 72-hour watch. They've got to do an assessment and figure out, okay, how real is this threat? Well, most people with, some degree of insight are, and if they're really sincere in their intentions, they're not going to tell the truth. So then what happens? Well, then they're released back out into the public. You would be shocked as to how many that people people know these people are just a ticking time bomb that are walking around in society. It's terrifying when you realize that. So now, I mean, I don't know what the solution is. It would be great if there was people that we know for sure have a history of previous violence, that they really should not be reintegrated back into society, that the risk is just too great to even try it, that they go somewhere. I don't even know I don't know, Montana or Wyoming or someplace, some state that has a lot of land can donate 50 acres and then they can build some sort of, apartments or something. I don't know, some sort of little mini village there. And you know what would somewhat work is if you've ever been to a military base where it's its own walled off city with guards. There's a grocery store, there's schools, there's a little mini hospital, there's pretty much everything that you need. And then there's housing. That's what we need. So, but yeah, there's nothing there. And I think a lot of people too, don't fully understand that, they don't change. I've had the benefit of working with personality disordered people and experiencing my personal life and my professional life. And I can see why a lot of people, if you're only seeing a certain side of them, you don't see the real them. Like you don't see that they're not changing. You don't see the danger that they are because you're not on the receiving end of it. So it's easy to, I think, it's easy to think that you're making a difference, that that there's some sort of progress being made, because the ones that are even reasonably self-aware are able to at least say the words that they know they need to say in order to make people believe what they want them to believe. So I don't know. I think that's a big part of it is people just don't see the real them. Yeah. Agatha says, yes, mostly because we see the charming side of them. That's the disturbed part that is mostly hidden. Yes. And they can really hide that disturbed part really well. And it can be really difficult, even if you know, okay, this person has antisocial personality disorder. They have a history of horrific crimes to humanity. They can come in, they can be charming, they can say all the right things, they can tell you, they'll blow smoke, they'll blow smoke like you wouldn't believe. Oh, you made such a difference in my life. And, they'll talk, like the stuff that they will say is they just say all the right things. And then you find out later on, they've gone right back to doing what they're doing, or that they've been, now that they're, I don't know, using drugs, or that they're running some sort of scam, or they're doing something. Like everything, it's always another level of the game. You're never dealing with anybody that's like, you never see that authentic person of them. It's just all manipulation. Joe says, yeah, you could run a background check. Yeah. It would be nice if there was some sort of website that was like Yelp, but for people. I think the challenge with that would be, obviously like privacy and potential slander and these kinds of things. But I think the real people that have really gone through some scary stuff with some scary people, they're not going to come forward and risk writing they're not going to come forward and risk telling the truth because they're afraid of retaliation. So even if we had a site like that, it's still, I don't know how effective it would really be. Oh yeah, totally. Up Yours Narc says they can hide their behavior, which means it's a choice they make over and over again. Absolutely. People that have mental illness, they're like that. That you could hold a gun to their head and say, you better hold down a job, or you better, you better act normal. You better act quote unquote normal. You better act, you better stop hearing voices. You better not act that way, or I'm going to shoot you. They wouldn't be able to, because it's not their personality. It's their brain. It's their brain chemistry. So it's a totally different thing. Personality disordered people, oh, they know. Because if they didn't know, they wouldn't be lying about their behavior, and they know when to turn it on and when to turn it off. If you held a gun to their head, I guarantee you they could act just fine. So it's just, there's no motivation for them to, because their behavior gets them what they want. But those people, they're playing at like the low levels of like Maslow's pyramid of the hierarchy of needs. It's just this base level life of, food, clothing, sex, shelter. And they're just lying and scamming and cheating. And they never get higher up in that pyramid to where they can work on self-actualization, which that in itself, we were, Angie and I, the live stream we had last week, we were talking about that. Somebody had asked about, well, what about compassion for them? And anyways, I had said, I'm more concerned about you guys having compassion for you than I am you concerned about having compassion for a violent criminal. And I think it's really important that we don't misplace our compassion. If you wanted to have compassion for these kinds of people, it would be for that they are stuck at this bottom levels of Maslow's hierarchy. They're never going to get to that self-actualization, that having any type of self-awareness. They're just all running games and hustling and, just mayhem and foolishness. Little Britches says, do narcissists ever take a break from their narcissistic thinking or behavior, like when they're alone? So you suppose they're just rotten to the core? Yeah, that is them. That's their thinking and their behavior. There's nothing like, that's them. There's no empathy. There's no remorse. Because there's no guilt. You've got to have guilt to have empathy and remorse. Well, at least remorse. Empathy, in order for a person to have empathy, they've got to have, there has to be some degree of vulnerability there and some degree of connection. They don't have that. For whatever reason, maybe something traumatic happened when they were younger and this wall just went up where they realized, hey, you know what? It's not safe. It's not safe to love. And so then they just cut that part off subconsciously. That could be it. Sometimes I think they're just born this way. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. The brain is a weird, wild thing that we haven't even begun to understand. I would be curious to know what neuroscience really, how much of the brain that they really think we have a solid understanding of. My guess would be that it's less than 10%. So what you see is them. They don't put on this act to be manipulative. They put on an act to be normal. So there is no time where they are introspective and think about, oh, I really messed up. I lost a good woman, or I lost a good man, or what have I done? Like, there's none of that. Yeah, exactly. Kim Ortega says, yeah, self-defense mechanisms. Yep. Nonstop for them. It's why they compartmentalize their behavior. It's why you see them. It's why they all kind of act the same, because all human beings, we have, I forget exactly how many there are. I don't know, 12 or 14 different psychological defense mechanisms that we all can throw up at any given time. This stuff is all happening below our conscious awareness. So, denial, dissociation, oh man, I'd have to look up. There's a whole list. It's really interesting of all of the different ways that we try to avoid the truth when we can't handle it. And that's what you're seeing in them. is just nonstop defense mechanisms. So they don't ever get to that point where they can reflect honestly. Missy is talking about Zach Morris. It says, yes, Zach Morris was a narcissist. We were talking about, there's a series of videos. I think that YouTube channel is called College Humor, if I'm thinking about it correctly. They have this whole series. It's hilarious. It's called Zach Morris is Trash. It's all of these different snippets of episodes of when he was just, his behavior was awful, like totally sociopathic. It's wild, but so it's funny that that series is, when you think about it that way, as behavior, what it really is, it's concerning, but yeah. Okay. Good night, Agatha. She says, I'll be listening and will fall asleep. Okay, let's see here. Oh, absolutely. Surf Smurf says, Dana, I would like to clarify or add to something you said. I've shared before, but I have been diagnosed with ADHD, major depression, and borderline OCD. It makes life slightly problematic, but it doesn't mean I'm crazy. Yes. And I'm not even a fan, to be honest with you, I'm not even a fan of, I'm for sure not a fan of using the word crazy in regards to mental illness. From the outside looking in, we see a bunch of kind of dysregulated behavior and we'll say, oh my gosh, that person's acting crazy. It's really dysregulation and it's generally a chemical imbalance is what's going on with mental illness. If there's ever an appropriate use of the term crazy, I would say it's with narcissists and sociopaths, because they can turn that stuff on and turn it off. They know how to behave appropriately. They just don't. So yeah, I don't think, please, but I for sure do not think anybody that has really any other personality disorder, I don't think that that's crazy. Maybe even it's not even fair to really say narcissists and sociopaths are crazy. It used to be the DSM. I'd have to check. I don't know if it's still organized this way, but each of the different clusters of personality disorders had different features that were like significant to that cluster. So for narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial, borderline personality, and histrionic, the kind of main features, it was dramatic, erratic, and emotional. Like those were the three kind of traits that were pervasive through all of those personality disorders. Whereas other personality disorders might be kind of odd behavior. I'd have to go look. I had it all written down somewhere, but it's interesting when you kind of think of it that way. So I apologize if I said anything that was offensive. That's definitely not my intention. Pamela says, what do I do with my 19-year-old daughter who doesn't realize she is dating a covert narcissist and has stopped talking to me? Is there any way that she would be open to communicating with you if you never brought up her boyfriend again? I guess that would be my first question. And if that is the case, then if you think that would work, if you were to say something like, you know what, honey, I really love you. I will always love you. I had expressed in the past that I'm really concerned about, whatever, whoever, John Smith or Jane Smith, I don't know, the new partner. I'm really concerned about this person that you're dating. But I promise, I really value having you in my life. And I'd really like to stay in yours. And could we maybe have the understanding that I won't bring it up anymore? But I just want you to know that I'm always here for you, because this happens more often than not. And we all do this. If any one of us are doing something that we know is a problem, we tend to hide it. People, they hide food. They hide people that they're dating. They hide, they might hide their credit card statements. When people start hiding things from other people, it's generally out of shame. So getting around that and realizing, because if she's going back and forth between like, she really likes him, but he's a jerk, but she really likes him, but he's a jerk. And she's struggling with that cognitive dissonance nonstop. When any one of us are caught up in that loop, anybody else that's contributing to that mental distress by saying, oh yeah, this person's a jerk, it kind of creates this kind of us versus them mentality. Like, well, he might be a jerk, but he's my jerk. You see the same thing. Well, people do the same thing with their parents, right? Like it's, it's like, it's okay for them to talk about how awful their father is. But if you agree with them, or if you start talking about how awful their dad is, they're going to get really defensive. It's the same kind of thing. So if you can reopen communication with her, even if you're not discussing him at all, or if she does bring it up, you're focusing on, you know what, honey, I love you. And I want the best for you. And you just kind of drop it, letting her know that there's no judgment here, that this is, that she's welcome here, and kind of leaving the door open, and then really not talking about him. She'll come around. If you've mentioned it before about, I'm concerned that he's a narcissist, or I'm concerned about this kind of behavior. If you've mentioned this, odds are, and if she's got any inkling about his behavior being concerning, she's probably already Googled it or gone on YouTube. So now it's just going to be letting her connecting the dots on her own time. And that's really, yeah, you're spot on, James. He says, and it sucks because you really can't get anyone to see it until they do it themselves. Yep. Pamela says, yeah, she broke up with him for a week, but went back after he had a talk with her. There's a lot of that, a lot of on again, off again, back and forth. It's the polarization of, I really love this person, but I can't handle all of this crazy making behavior, but I really love them. And so then when a person swings back to, oh, but I really care about them, or I really love them, they're slipping back into that denial. They're holding on to hope, to false hope, to empty promises of change. They're holding on to their own fantasy of thinking that if they just stay in this dynamic long enough, that surely this person's going to come around. They're going to try to win their love and their approval and being treated with respect. And they're going to think, surely after I have enough, if I can prove to this person that I am worthy of being treated right, then he'll appreciate me. But it doesn't work that way, because there's deeper things within that person that are off. It has nothing, we can't and we shouldn't have to earn being treated with dignity. So yeah, that's really common. All of the back and forth. That's what I think burns a lot of family and friends out, is all of the back and forth. There's tears and I hate him, I'm never doing this again. And then 3 days later, back in the relationship, not wanting to talk about it, or talking about how wonderful things are. And then 3 months later, back to being upset and I never want to see this person again. It's just back and forth. So hopefully she will kind of step out of it. If you think she's even, yeah, Pamela says, yeah, she often goes silent when she knows it isn't a good situation. Yeah. And most people do. So if you can just let her know, for you, if you can keep communication open, that is the number one thing. Because when all of that shame and that embarrassment, it can further isolate a person, because other people are very quick to say, oh, well, see, I told you so. That guy was a total jerk. I told you so. Or, geez, what took you so long to see it? Those kinds of things, even if they're said jokingly, even if they're said with good intentions, it can really contribute to that shame and embarrassment. And then when that person starts feeling really low, and if that abuser is back to the love bombing again and saying all the right things, you've got this person over here that feels really low, that the charm of the abuser is going to be all that much more attractive. And so then it creates this dynamic of this person creates the pain, but they're also the only one that can take it away. It's so the mind games of it all, and just there's so much going on there, but it might help. I think if she's ever open down the road to discussing any of this, sometimes I think it can help to hear about this stuff from a neutral third party. I think that's why I think it helps to be a part of the chat, or to be a part of there's a lot of support groups out there, to hear the stories of other people, because we don't know, there's no hidden agenda. Like, I don't know your daughter. I don't know her boyfriend. It's not that I'm, or anybody else in the support group. I don't have a hidden agenda to like break them up, or because I want to date this other person, or you know what I mean? And so when total strangers are giving input, I think it tends to be a lot more well received, because there isn't that history with that other person, and there's no judgment, because there's no emotional investment there. It's this total stranger that's people are sharing their experiences, and I think it's just a lot easier to kind of process that way. I will say, I think one of the most helpful things, if she's ever open to this, is to join a support group on narcissistic abuse. I think that's been such a huge eye-opener for so many people that have joined the support group, because they're reading, you can't help but see it's different versions of the same story. And other people are like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, like, they said this to you, or they did this, and it's uncanny. And it's just a lot easier to see stuff from other people. Ricky James says, was Bill Cosby a narcissist? I think I don't know if he was diagnosed antisocial personality disorder, but that his behavior is for sure in that realm, because he was so exploitative and charming, and lived a double life, and was so destructive to so many people. That's just kind of hands down. So like the saying, all people with antisocial personality disorder are narcissists at the core, but not all narcissists are sociopaths or psychopaths. So narcissists have this kind of blinding degree of self-absorption, kind of in a nutshell. Sociopaths also have that, but then there's that added layer of, then they are very exploitative. They're the emotional and financial con artists of the world. And the damage that they do is just all of them, it's just absolutely devastating. So, yeah. Okay. Pamela says, yeah, the good point about isolation. He tells her they are soulmates and God meant for them to be together. Yeah, that's very disconcerting. Do you think she would be open to just listening into the chat or coming in here at some point? I know that might be kind of a stretch considering where she's at earlier. I guess how old is she too, if you don't mind me asking? Yeah, Crystal says Bill Cosby had to be covert narcissist or psychopath, possibly. Yeah, I would agree. He was so intentional and he was so malicious and he was so predatory and there was no empathy and he was so charming. It's wild. What a shock. Whoever thought? I mean, my goodness. Okay, let me scroll up. Hey, that's a great question. Hey, Lydia says, is this possible? Can two empaths be attracted to each other? Yeah, I mean, I think anything's possible. I don't know. I would be curious to know kind of how long those relationships tend to last, because people that have a high degree of empathy to where they're like hyper in tune with the emotions of other people tend to also be only comfortable taking care of meeting the emotional needs of other people. And in large part, they're also very out of tune with their own emotional needs. That's kind of part of why they're so hyper in tune with somebody else's. So for whatever reason, they have the understanding that their wants and needs and thoughts and opinions and feelings should always be on the back burner. They should always take last priority. Everybody else should be first. And so if a child, especially a child, gets that message somewhere down the line, and that their personality kind of forms around that, and then they become really, I think a lot of us that are more on that high empathy side of the spectrum, we've gone through life just feeling like, oh, well, we're just the natural healer, or we're just kind of a natural caregiver. It's what we tend at a very young age tend to show. We're the ones that, really care about the elderly and little children and animals and all of that. And it's, as we get older, it's because we're so out of tune with our emotions, we feel guilty or wrong for even having them, or even for even considering them, that we're putting it on other people. So when you have two empaths that are like that are not really comfortable, or I should say, they're only comfortable if they're putting themselves last, then it's sort of like, well, then it's one person's redundant, because if both people are kind of getting their needs met in a certain way, it's really awkward. It's really difficult. So this isn't to say, actually, let me clarify that statement, because I think there's a really solid difference between being like an empath and being an empath with healthy boundaries. So a lot of us start off as just kind of, there's no boundaries, a total blurred boundaries. It's the feeling of, I don't know where I start and end and where you start and end. And your emotions are my emotions, and the complete inability to separate the two. That's a really difficult way to live. And it's on every level. So if a person that has a high degree of empathy can really rein that in and start learning about healthy boundaries, then that's a game changer, because you're able to better contain that and let other people, you can have that empathy and you can share in their feelings and you can be there for them, but you're not taking on everything to where it's completely debilitating for you. And if really a relationship, frankly, even any relationship's only going to work if there's healthy boundaries at play. Anything else is going to eventually fizzle out or cause frustration or explode. Like there has to be a healthy relationship, has to have two people that have open, honest, sincere communication, that they're comfortable being their authentic self, being real with the other person. They have to be comfortable with conflict and and not to say that the fighting, I'm not talking about fighting, but disagreeing. Because in order to be authentic, we have to have our own feelings and thoughts and beliefs. That's probably not always, it's not always going to be in alignment with somebody else. And so when these conflicts come up, that they're able to be resolved in an appropriate, respectful way. Boundaries, standards, deal breakers, these kinds of things. When all of that's in alignment, then yes, they can have that. So I think you can have two people that are high degrees of empathy with healthy boundaries that can have a healthy relationship. The healthy boundaries, I think, would really balance out the high degree of empathy to where it's more appropriate, because generally that high degree of empathy is kind of synonymous with really blurred boundaries, and they don't even realize it, because a lot of this stuff flies under the radar, and it's oftentimes seen by us and other people as really ideal behavior, as fantastic, and it's not. It's out of alignment. So and you can tell if it's out of alignment if you have that attitude of sinking yourself to save somebody else, or if you're completely debilitated by other people's emotions. Like, for example, when I was in nursing school, this is long before I'd ever heard of the term empath. Well, actually, even before that, when I was in high school, I dropped out of high school because I couldn't handle all of the people. That was the first big school I went to. There were too many people. And it was complete system overload for me. I could not handle it. I dropped out of high school when I moved to Colorado, I think 2 days in. And then I ended up going to this alternative school later. But I couldn't, it was too much. Then when I was in nursing school, I always thought it was just a crowd thing. When I went to nursing school, when we had our clinicals, and so you have different rotations, you have your medical surgical, you have ER, you have maternity, you have psychiatric, just kind of figure out where you want to work as a nurse, what you want to specialize in. And we would go into the hospitals and I couldn't handle it. It was absolutely awful. And I would get out of there, completely drained and just feeling exhausted and sick. When I was working in the medical surgical unit where it's a lot of sickness, I would leave. It was like I took on every single thing that I saw. If they had a broken arm, my arm would hurt. If they, you know what I mean? So that's a really difficult way to live when you're over connecting with people. And so I realized when I was in nursing school, I'm like, I cannot work in a hospital. I don't know what is wrong with me, but I can't do this. And so I went into hospice nursing, which, because in part it was one-on-one and you could have that really deep connection with somebody. And it was just more of even though it was dealing with death, it was, I don't know, it was just more of comfort care, and it was care. It was, you got to know the person for the person. And then when I moved into psychiatric nursing, again, it was not as many people. So as a hospital, I should say, we had a lot of patients, but you only saw so many in a day. I don't know. I'm just rambling. I guess knowing your limits is important. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. Dina says, I couldn't do nursing. I had to quit. Feeling others' pain was too much. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, it's really wild. Crystal says, yeah, Dana, I was like that in school too. It was just too much overwhelm. And hey, Lydia says, yeah, I could not work in a hospital. Seeing somebody in pain would make me cry. Yeah, it was heartbreaking all the time. And I hadn't ever thought about boundaries in that way until actually fairly recently. We read this book. It was a Pia Melody book. And if you guys know, I just absolutely think the world of her. She's so spot on when she talks about boundaries. And she talks about them in a couple of different books. There's one called Facing Codependence, which is fantastic. And then there's one called Facing Love Addiction. And her kind of thought, or the way she defines boundaries, boundaries have to do with containment and regulation. So in how we interact with other people. So it's what the containment part is, what we do or don't let out. And the regulation is what we do or don't let in. And I just think that's so spot on. So I hadn't ever thought about it that way, but that was where that's kind of blurred boundary, one of many, frankly, blurred boundaries that I had, or non-existent boundaries that I had. When I read all of the different boundaries that she had listed out in her book, it was just mind-blowing because she was so spot on. Yeah, James says she's great, but she don't pull punches. Yeah, she does not. She's straight up. She just lays it out. C. Finn says, I couldn't handle the stress of an EMT response. Yeah. I can do fine. It's interesting. So I'm taking this class right now. It's on crisis and trauma. And so it's having the nursing background I do, and then going more into counseling. It's there, there's a lot of similarities. It's basically you're dealing with the same people. It's the same picture, but a different angle, I should say. And so when nursing school, to deal with crisis and trauma, we did drills. Like you do certain things, especially like CPR, for example, over and over and over again. And you're practicing it because when something traumatic happens, we all go into this fight, flight, or freeze mode. And in order to be effective, you've got to keep your wits and get to work and focus on saving this person's life. So a lot of the EMTs and nurses and people that are dealing with these crises, you get to this point where you can handle things that rattle normal people, don't rattle you. And then that's weird when you realize that that's that you're just kind of start realizing that you're wired differently now. It's weird. Like I could totally handle a psychotic person any day of the week. Totally fine. Not a problem. Does not intimidate me at all. Reading a critical book review makes me totally panic and totally go into flight mode and just shut me down. Anyways, so this crisis and trauma class that I'm taking, she had these exercises that were absolutely fantastic. And what it was is this role playing where, let's say, the role play example was you have to tell a parent that their child has said that there's abuse going on in the home and that you have to call Child Protective Services. And how are you going to handle this? And then the parent starts becoming very aggressive and intimidating. And so we were all role playing kind of what we would say, and we were practicing being knocked off balance, and which was very similar to when I was in nursing school, and you're going through these different drills with, this is what's going on. You're practicing how to be responsive when you're knocked off balance. And you eventually get to that point where the autopilot kicks in, and you're not having to scramble for the words or scramble for the equipment or your hand positions or any of that. So anyways, it was interesting because it was being knocked off balance in two very different ways. With nursing background, it was more like physical behaviors. Something is happening right now. You've got to be able to handle this and diffuse the situation immediately. Counseling, you're dealing with, it's not potentially like physical aggression or physical crisis, it's emotional. And it was so interesting because every single one of us in the classroom, we were completely panicked, and we were stumbling for words and trying to figure out. Everybody was going into flight mode, flight or freeze. And the instructor at the end of it, she's like, you need to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And it was so interesting because then you start digging deeper, because it's like, this is part of it. I have to make this report. I'm a mandated reporter. I don't have a choice, and holding your ground with that and not apologizing for it, just owning it. And I think so many of us that felt so intimidated by that, we don't like conflict in general. We tend to go into panic mode with conflict. And this is stuff that stems generally from childhood. That if a person gets mad at you, then they're going to leave or you're going to be in trouble. And it was just interesting thinking about it. Okay, this is this, daughter and a mother, and you're informing her that this is what has to happen. And you're doing it in a compassionate, caring way, but you're having to say, this, I need to make this phone call, which basically, I can imagine that this would be, that this is surprise, if she starts going off the deep end, just saying, I can imagine this to be really surprising and upsetting. And if, would you like to stay in my office while I make the call, or would you like to wait out in the waiting room? Like, you're just taking control of the situation. Cause it's like, what are you afraid of? She's not going to leave you. There's not that emotional investment there. You're not going to get punished. So it's just interesting when you think about why you get mad about things. Okay. Sorry, that was a tangent. Okay, let me see. Let me scroll up here. Okay, Tamika says, hi, my name is Tamika. I'm trying to see if my boyfriend is a narcissist. He seems to always dump me out of nowhere, and it's a cycle. And I saw, Missy had said in the chat that we don't diagnose here. Our focus is on whether or not it's toxic. And Tamika, you're asking one of my very favorite questions that so many people have, myself included, when they come across this topic. They want to know, is this person a narcissist or are they not a narcissist? Because if they're a narcissist, then okay, then this is really a problem. That's kind of how they tend to really be thinking about this. But then if they're not a narcissist, then maybe this can be fixed, or they can change, or this isn't as problematic as I think it is. And so what Missy was saying about focusing on whether or not it's toxic is taking a few steps back and getting in tune with yourself to be like, okay, where are your deal breakers for stuff? And a person doesn't have to be a narcissist in order for that relationship to be toxic for you. And I would say that kind of stuff, the games, the crazy we were talking earlier about standards. And I had shared that one of the biggest things I'd ever done for myself, one of the biggest parts of self-care that I had done for myself was to really reel in my standards. Whereas before, I would stay in relationships like this and I would think, okay, well, I'll leave if they're a narcissist or if they're a sociopath or if they're cheating on me or if they're stealing from me or if they hit me. But anything else is workable. That was my old mentality. The new mentality is I don't do any squirrely behavior. I don't do crazy making, and I don't do perpetual confusion. And so I also, if somebody's treating me with disdain, contempt, or hostility, these are all deal breakers. I would really encourage you to consider making that your kind of new line in the sand. It'll radically change your life when you can pull everything back and have that be your line. Like that's enough concrete proof that there's a problem. So if he's continually up and breaking up with you for no reason out of nowhere, you can't trust somebody like that. You would never feel emotionally safe. You would always be kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's he upset about now? What's, we seem to be having a great time, but is he going to up and leave? What's going on? If there's not that emotional safety or that trust, then there's no relationship present. There really isn't. So that kind of stuff is crazy making when a person ups and leaves like that. And I will tell you too, just from previous experience, my own and other people's in the support group, when people, male or female, tend to do this kind of stuff, when they just up and break up with you for no reason, and then they come back, they're generally cheating. And they're justifying it in their mind by saying, oh, well, we weren't together at that time. I had a friend, her husband would do this. Would out of nowhere pick a fight or try to bait her into a fight. And it was, everything was fine with them. And then he would start nitpicking and looking, trying to create conflict between them. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't work, but then he would disappear for a few days and then he'd come back. Well, he ended up getting another woman pregnant. Turns out he'd been cheating on her from the first time they went on a date. He'd been cheating on her from day one. And that was his way of justifying it. Like, oh, we were on a break or we weren't together, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that kind of stuff is a problem. That is interest. Oh, wait, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Camilla, that's interesting, says, I think that there's a link between paranoia and narcissism. I could see how a person could be, if a person has a lot of problematic behavior, I could see how they could become paranoid because they would think that other people are thinking and acting the same way. So I could see how that could cause them to be paranoid or fuel that paranoia. Thinking that other people are up to what they're up to, or I don't know. I could even see, like, if they were really grandiose and they weren't achieving their dreams, to then start feeling like other people must be sabotaging them because it can't possibly be them. It's got to be other people. That could create paranoia. They have such a distorted worldview that there really is no healthy thinking in there ever. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was more kind of concerning behavior that would surface, like paranoia or I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, aggression or just, increased like impulsivity, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I wonder if it's certain areas of the brain too. And that's another very valid point. She says, yeah, because how human are people without empathy? Well, that's the thing, right? So we associate, I think it's kind of synonymous, like human with empathy. That's one of the things that I think really, or one of the features that really sets us apart, is that ability to work as a team, to work together, to care about one another. Who was it? It was, oh shoot. It was the guy who wrote the book, the Psychopathy Checklist. I'm totally drawing a blank on his name. I can't remember his name. He's like the leading guy, and it kind of researching psychopathy. But he had, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now on his name. He was he referred to psychopaths as basically intra-species predators, which I thought that was really accurate and really interesting, because other animals don't prey on their own, but psychopaths are really the only, unless they're starving or like extreme situation, right? But that intra-species predator, like they attack other humans for no reason. So it's a weird kind of wiring thing there. But yeah, I think when people, this is one of the reasons, Robert Hare, that's his name. His last name was Hare. I don't know. I could be wrong about his first name. But when people talk about, when they see that lack of empathy, they'll oftentimes talk about, that they were evil, that they were like the devil, that they saw a demon, that they felt fear, like they've never seen eyes like that there was a totally black or vacant look in their eyes. And what a lot of this stuff that they're describing, it's that complete lack of empathy. And it's that person, it's also, I would say it's a complete lack of empathy, but it's also disdain, contempt, and hostility, because they're going into fight mode for whatever reason. It's terrifying to see somebody like that, because it does not look human. It's not something that any of us, that most people will ever see in their life. You know, that is a very valid point, and I bet you're right about that, Gigi. She says, as far as paranoia and narcissists, I think at the root of every narcissist is a really fragile ego. So they are paranoid that they aren't liked, that they aren't the best, that they aren't all of these things that they attain to be. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that's, I had never really thought about that. Hindsight is talking about different twin studies, identical twin studies, with where you have one child who is schizophrenic and the other who isn't. You have one twin who's homosexual and then the other is heterosexual. I wonder how that does play out with personality disorders, especially if they're not raised in the same home. Like if they're raised in, different states or something, if there's still, how much of a nature component is there? Really? MDA says, I'm a twin with a narcissist for a twin. Did you notice at a young age, like when did you start noticing that there was something concerning and different about your twin? And do you have, is there anything that you, knowing what you know now, can look at and say, yes, this was this event that kind of just, kind of twisted the tree and made them grow in a different direction? Tanitria says, yes, all of this unpredictable behavior, it activates my PTSD. Yeah. And that's, that unpredictable, that erratic behavior, it's unsettling to anyone who's on the receiving end of it. And it's one of the reasons I think it is so important for people to get in tune with how it feels when you feel calm, how it feels when you feel content, how it feels when you feel safe, when you feel relaxed. Probably starting off with how it feels when you feel relaxed is probably the first step in all of that. And doing more of those things that make you feel safe and secure and calm. The more time that we spend in that zone of this is emotionally safe and physically safe for me, I think the more in tune we can get, the more in tune we are with things that are not that are erratic and dramatic and chaotic and crazy making, we're able to get a better, I don't know, be more in tune with when things are off. It's really difficult to kind of get grounded when you're in the storm, when there's all of this craziness around you, to hold on to your reality and be like, it is not me, it is them. It's especially if there's more than one. They've got flying monkeys and other people, they're trying to push other people, and you're kind of getting it from all of these different angles. That is really, really difficult. So if you can remove yourself, get to a place where you feel comfortable, calm, secure, get grounded, remind yourself, you know what it feels like to feel emotionally safe. You know what it feels like when you feel sane and calm and all of that. And so when you're not in that, you become even more aware of how uncomfortable that feels. Sunflower says, often lately, I think we are not the normal ones, that we have been trained to be empaths from narcissistic parents. Well, yeah, I think when you have a child, Pia Melody, I think, would call it, she would call it a less than nurturing home environment. But I think there's other factors that can play into that. If somewhere along the line, your wants and needs could not have been, they weren't taken seriously, or they weren't made into they weren't given, they weren't made a priority, like an appropriate priority, right? So for example, like for my life, I had a brother who I loved dearly, but was ADD big time, and dyslexic. And this was before really either of those two things they knew much about. And so he was a very kind of high needs child. And pretty much all of my parents' attention went to him. And so I had to really, and I was fine with that. I've always been an introvert. So I was always off in my room reading all the time or writing. But I think it just got to the point. So a lot of this stuff, it was not ever meant to be hurtful. That was how things just kind of had to be. And so the result of that was I became very comfortable putting my wants and needs last. And I also became very comfortable taking care of people, being there for people that needed, that needed extra support. So, because it's like, I saw my brother and everything that he went through with getting bullied at school and with, homework every single night. It would wind up, he would start crying because he didn't get it. And he would, my parents would get frustrated, and he was trying, it was just there was just always, he just was always in emotional pain because of this. And I loved him so much that I wanted him to be okay. And then when I got older, it was very much, I had a grandmother that had Alzheimer's and she lived with us. So again, taking care of her had to be the priority. And I didn't mind because that's just how it had to be. So there's all of these different events that can shape us that don't necessarily even have to be due to narcissistic parents. It can just be how we interpret or how we respond to these different events in our life. And it's just wild. So then when you start kind of going back as an adult and you start seeing like, oh my gosh, this is why I chose this line of work, or this is why I had these different relationships, or you're kind of connecting the dots and realizing this is what's been driving a lot of my behavior. So it's interesting when you start looking back. But yes, I think that when we're so used to putting other people first, that's where a lot of that empath behavior comes from. And we're so in tune with other people's emotions because we're so out of tune with ours. The danger with that is we run a very high risk of misreading how they're really feeling and what they really need, because we're projecting a lot of our emotions onto them. Because if we're not comfortable having wants and needs and feelings, we're projecting it onto them. And so then it's very easy to think, oh, well, they're feeling this way and this is what's going on. The reality might be that no, they're not. They're not feeling that at all. We're just assuming that they must feel this way, or that, so, and this goes back to like, when you get those boundaries in place, you're able to handle to process and to identify your own emotions, and better, you're more well equipped to sincerely be there for another person. And you're not assuming so much. And you're able to you're able to let them identify their experience and saying like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm needing, instead of us just assuming that that's what they need from us. So yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting to a point. Camilla says, we misread others' feelings because of projection, and then they read us like a book. If we're talking about manipulators, yes, that's a big part of why where all of this goes wrong. So we're projecting our thoughts and feelings and fantasy of this relationship we want to have with them, as well as our moral compass, onto somebody that, and generally other people are not there, because everybody's an individual. So you're not going to find somebody that's exactly like you. So there's always some degree of fantasy involved. But if we can see like, okay, I'm projecting all of this onto this other person, they may not have this, time will tell. But if time is continually showing they don't have empathy, they don't have remorse, they don't have a moral compass, they don't care, they're, doing all of these things. If we're continuing to project our good behavior onto them, then we're just in denial. So that's a big part of it, is we're projecting our good qualities onto them. They're reading us like a book and able to craft their lies into what we need to hear in order to keep the con going, basically. And then you said that then they misjudge themselves and we judge ourselves accurately. I would say that's a little off. I would say that they, if we're talking about the same, we might not be talking about the same thing. So maybe it's not off at all. I think so we're projecting our behavior onto them. They're reading us like a book. Down the road, they start projecting their behavior onto us. That's when we're getting accused of cheating, of lying, of being abusive, of being manipulator, of being unfair, all of these things. They're projecting their behavior onto us. We, in turn, if we stay in that dynamic, we learn to read them like a book. And that's where all of this walking on eggshells starts up. So, and that's where the empath stuff tends to start up. If a person's grown up in a home where there's been an addict or an alcoholic or some sort of narcissistic tyrant in the home, they learn very quickly to become very in tune with the emotional climate of that house in order to stay safe as possible. So any child that's grown up with an addict or an alcoholic, certain events or certain days that parent's going to come home and it's not going to be good. Or if they throw down their keys a certain way, that you can tell, oh, great, here it comes. You just become hypersensitive to all of these little, actions or body movements of somebody. So, okay, so then we're projecting onto them. They're reading us like a book. They're projecting onto us. We're trying to read them like a book. That's that toxic cycle that we get into. And then I would say the other part of that is if we're in that cycle, we're not perceiving ourselves accurately. But in large part, because we're perceiving ourselves through their eyes. And that's where that stuff can be so dangerous. Because if we're looking for validation or some sort of identity even from an abusive person, it's never going to be good. This is also part of like what Pia Melody was talking about with the different boundaries, the containment boundary and then the regulation boundary. The regulation, choosing what we do or do not let in. So a person with a functioning regulation boundary is a person who, if somebody is abusive to you, they start calling you names, they're they're grinding you down, telling you that you don't deserve respect, or they'll give you respect when you've earned it, or that you're, I don't know, stupid, fat, and ugly, and all whatever that they're saying. If we have healthy self-esteem and that healthy functioning regulation boundary, we don't own that. We don't let that garbage come in. We see it as garbage. We see it as a reflection of them, that they have major issues if they're going around trying to tear down other people. They have major issues if they can't be accountable for their behavior, and they're lying and they're denying and they're deflecting and they're blaming and they're shaming other people. So we don't even let that in. But it takes, I think with the boundary, we all tend to walk around thinking that we have healthy boundaries until we realize that we don't. And that's the challenge in all of this. And this is one of the reasons I'm a firm believer that healthy boundaries are really only developed through them being pushed to a point of such a degree of pain that a person is on their knees and they're like, okay, I've got to figure out how to do something different. How do I break free from this? Because normal people subscribe to that normal understanding of the world of how you treat other people is how they'll treat you, and that you get back what you put out in the world, and that forgiveness, it's important to forgive and forget, and that commitment is everything, and that family is forever, and that all of those well-intended bad advice that keeps people stuck and that creates poor boundaries, and they don't realize it. They think that they're being a compassionate, caring person. And then, you get tangled up with one of these people and you just get dragged through hell. And then you realize, oh my gosh, yeah, okay, so these other things need work. I didn't realize that my boundaries had been eroded and pushed to such a degree. Let's see. Oh, Bonnie's here. Hello, Bonnie. Okay, let's see here. Let me. Scroll up here. MDA says, do you guys ever fear becoming like the narcissist in your life? It's a constant fear of mine. I used to feel that way, mainly because I was so angry and I'd gotten to a place where I was wanting to isolate and I was so distrusting of other people that I just didn't feel like myself at all. And really any ability, I had struggled with connecting with other people. And I really struggled with having empathy because I just was so angry. I had so much rage as to how I was so mistreated that I couldn't, it really was difficult. It wasn't difficult for me in my job, but it was difficult for me outside of my job to connect in the same way that I did with other people before. So yeah, and I think that that's pretty normal, especially if a person is to the point where there's major personality changes within them and they're finding themselves lashing out and becoming very verbally or physically aggressive. And like somebody was saying in the chat, who was saying that? It was a good Camilla. Camilla was talking about developing, picking up traits, and we call them fleas. Like you lay down with a dog, you get fleas. Well, when you're tangled up with a narcissist, you pick up all kinds of coping strategies and maladaptive coping strategies to survive that relationship. So then it starts into, you just start walking on eggshells. It's just all kinds of things. Learning to keep quiet about certain things, learning not to express your opinion, learning to basically bottle up any criticism that you might have of them or of the relationship or all of this stuff. And then it just starts coming out. All of that this bottled up stuff just starts coming out in problematic ways. So yeah. And Camilla makes the really valid point of she doesn't fear becoming like the narcissist because she has empathy. Yes. And this was one of the things I had to really do as well to kind of ground myself when I would start panicking about, when you start becoming really introspective and self-aware of, boy, there's a lot of kind of wrinkles in my own personality that I need to iron out. It in a sort of, I guess like when you're reading about all of these personality disorder stuff, it's sort of like if you've got some cold symptoms and you go to WebMD, right? And next thing you know, you think you've got, 10 different things wrong with you and major stuff. And it's really overwhelming. So it's kind of the same way. But the thing is, if you have kind of doing that gut check and being like, okay, do you have empathy? Do you have remorse? Who are you when nobody else is looking? I think is probably the best indicator. That was what really kept me, because I would go to this crazy place of, well, like, I think I have empathy and I think I have empathy and remorse, but what if I don't? Like, what if I'm so far in denial that I'm lying to myself about this? And, how, like, it's so hard getting your footing back in reality as to what's going on. But I think one of the best ways to do it is to truly ask yourself, who are you when nobody else is looking? Do you care about other people, or are you putting on a show? Do you, do you have a moral compass? And is it just there because it's there, or is it there because of some sort of, again, you're trying to put on a performance or impress other people? But it's really common for partners of narcissists, especially. Well, here's an example. So my friend that I was telling you about, who had this husband who kept up and leaving her, and this went on for years. That personality changes in her were awful. I had called the police on them several times. I was afraid she was going to kill him because she was so, understandably, she was so angry because nothing ever got resolved in their relationship. And it got to the point where she would start becoming physical. She would just get so angry. So there was pushing and shoving and slapping and all of that stuff. Because she was trying to get an answer out of him. Like, what's going on? Are you cheating? Why are these women texting you? And he just didn't care. He just had this complete level of indifference, like infuriating level of indifference. Like he didn't even bother lying about it, faking an apology, faking that he cared. He just did not care. And so this was getting more and more crazy making with her. In order to cope with that, she began cheating. Which was totally not like her. But I think in her mind, it was a way to settle the score. And she needed to settle the score in order for her to be okay with staying. I think it's somewhere deep down, it was sort of like, well, yeah, he might have cheated, but I cheated too. So we have a shared issue, right? Like he's not just the one with issues. We have the shared issues. And so neither one of us are perfect. And that went on for a little while, but because it was so out of character for her, it just snowballed all of these other emotions of guilt and shame and confusion and disgust. I think self-loathing. Then she began drinking on a pretty regular basis to the point of like blacking out. She began abusing prescription anti-anxiety medication. So yeah, that kind of stuff is really common when if a person is in a situation where they feel they can't, either they feel they can't leave or it's just not in their, either they don't want to leave or they feel like they can't leave. If they're going to stay in the situation for whatever reason, if leaving is not an option, then they're going to have to get comfortable with staying. And people get comfortable with staying in a wide variety of ways: spending money, eating, drinking, cheating, cutting, all different kinds of ways in order to try to numb the pain of staying. Okay, let's see here. Let me scroll up. Oh, I think Anna's talking about the podcast. Yeah, all of these live streams also are made into podcasts. So if you're driving and you want to listen to them there, it's a great way to do it. I'm on, I think, every podcasting platform. You can find me under Thrive After Abuse. All of my stuff across the internet, you can find me. It's either at Thrive After Abuse or Dana Morningstar. So Camilla says, does anyone else want to skip Valentine's Day? LOL. Well, you know what? I think an alternative to Valentine's Day can be, you can turn it into Self-Love Day, where you really embrace like caring for yourself and what it means to value yourself, taking yourself out for dinner, giving yourself, doing something nice for yourself, giving yourself a nice gift, these kinds of things. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. And just as a side note, this is going to sound really weird, but so I don't know how to make videos. Like my confession, you would think that I would, because I'm on YouTube and I've been on YouTube for several years now. the software that I used to use is no longer available. And so I've been at a loss. Anyways, long story short, I figured it out. And so I'm going to start getting back in the swing of making more like focused videos that are on topic. So just FYI, and then those will also be made into podcasts down the road. So look for that in the next, I'll say March 1st is when that'll all kick off. I know that these 3-hour live streams are, it's a lot. It's a lot to sit through for anybody. I know, right? Missouri Cowboy says, if I ever make videos, I'm hiring Angie to train me. I know she really does a great job and has a whole system down, and I need to get back in the swing of things for sure. Okay, let's see here. Alucard says, it's hard to self-love on Valentine's when you've been discarded recently. And she seems so happy with the new guy. It's crazy making. Well, I'm going to challenge you on that, because I think it's these times that it's the most important that we do self-love. Sort of like, it's easy to be loving towards ourselves when things are going well, right? That's sort of like, it's easy to be on a diet if we're not hungry, right? It's a lot more difficult to be loving to ourselves if our world feels like it's falling apart around us. But interestingly enough, that's the time that you really need it the most. And there's so much that we can squeeze out of these painful situations, and getting into the practice of being loving and accepting and compassionate with yourself when things are not going well is one of probably the biggest lessons that we can gain from this. So, it doesn't matter what else is going on. Like, you matter, you have value. Tripling up on your self-care. I really like to view it as thinking of it as like the emotional flu. If you had the physical flu, you would probably camp out on the couch with a box of Kleenex and a bowl of soup and watch movies and then sleep. That would be it. You're taking care of your needs at that time. When we're coming out of a relationship like this, out of some sort of emotional or psychological abuse, it's like the emotional flu. You feel terrible. You don't want to do anything. You just kind of want to sit there. You're not sure if you feel awful. You just feel awful. And being compassionate with yourself, instead of expecting yourself to just get up and have the same amount of energy as you had before and expect yourself to do the same amount of things that you did before and to interact with other people the same way you did before, that is just pushing yourself really hard, and it's too hard. And so now is the time to really triple up being extra good to yourself. Okay, let's see here. And I think too, just FYI, I know you know this, but I guess 2 things I just wanted to add to that. The first one is to realize, I know you know this, but sometimes it can just be helpful to hear it, that this too shall pass, that you won't always feel this bad, that this is just it's a moment in your life, and it might last, it's going to last however long it lasts, but there is life after this. So just keeping that perspective of this pain's not going to always be this bad, and it won't always be this intense. And because of that comes part 2 to what I was going to say. And that is, I promise you one thing, is that your future self is never, ever, ever going to look back at this time in your life and think, boy, I really wish I would have worried about things more. Or boy, I'm really glad I didn't take the time to take care of myself. You're never going to say that. You're never going to think that. What your future self will think is, man, oh, that was such an awful time in my life. It was like a bomb went off and it was so hard. And I really wish I had been kinder and more compassionate and more caring towards myself. That's what your future self is going to wish that you had done. So don't wait. Don't wait for your future self to think that. Like give that to yourself now. Okay. Well, thank you. Missouri Cowboy says, Dana and chat members, thank you for all you do by sharing information, insights, and experiences and providing a safe enough place to tell my story. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate the live stream donation. And I just love this. I love what happens in the chat. It's just so cool to see people from all walks of life coming together and supporting each other. Yeah. Sam says, Dana, it doesn't feel like we've been here for 3 hours. So much goes on, so much info and sharing experiences. It flies by. The videos. He said, don't cut them short. They're so helpful. I've learned and healed the most in here. That is really good. That's really great to hear. And I feel the same way. This is such an interesting topic. And I'm glad to be able to provide this space here for people to connect and for us to discuss all of this. And I think that that's really an important, it's important. It's important that there's a place for that. So I'm glad to do that. And as far as the video, the lengths and stuff, I think I'll you know what? I'm going to experiment with a couple of different formats and then you guys let me know. And honestly, I could just do all of them. Like there's no limit on how many videos I can put up. So I will always do these 3-hour live streams because I feel like that's important. So this will always be a thing. Book club will always be a thing. The live streams might get cut up into smaller clips. So I don't know, like 5 to 12 minute clips. And then there's going to be shorter videos, probably, I don't know, hopefully not more than 10 minutes where it's very focused on certain topics. So that way it kind of can, all the different learning styles out there, all of the different attention spans out there and, processing people process information, maybe it'll kind of hit all of those spots. Sydney says, I like the 3-hour live streams. Yeah, I will say though, it's a totally different experience when you're here. This is when it flies by, when you're engaging with other people and seeing the chat and all of that. A lot of people, when you watch these videos after the fact, I would imagine it's not not anywhere near the same because you're just listening to me blather on for 3 hours. So there's a lot that people are missing if they're not here live. Because it is part of it. The fun is the chat and part of the healing is the chat. What goes on there? Dina says, I'm only allowed an occasional Wednesday. You are a godsend. To my shame, I am not strong enough to leave my narcissist yet. Hopefully someday. Well, you know what? There's no shame. There's no shame. There really isn't. There really isn't with that. It's difficult to leave, which is why people have struggled doing it. So we're glad that you're here And and for anybody that's still with an abusive partner, I just want you to know, like, there is no pressure to leave from me. You have to be able to get to that place where you're comfortable with whatever decision that you make, and that we're here to support people from all walks of life and from all levels of relationships with problematic people. So it's not like you have to leave anytime soon. It's not like you have to leave in order to be here. It's we're here. We just provide this space, hopefully to help people clarify, to give people clarity is kind of the goal. And then in support. And then whatever comes of that, comes of that. But there's no expectations. There's no shame. There's no pressure. There's none of that. Bonnie says, "Oh, Dana, we love your blathering. You give the gift of wisdom to us all. You are too kind." Well, I'm glad that you that you like my blathering. It's funny. Oh, okay. MDA says, "No way, Dana. I watch all of your videos, but it's the first live chat, and I think this is fantastic. Thank you." Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you could make it, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it. It's kind of funny because when I go into other YouTubers' live streams, you would think that it wouldn't that it wouldn't be such a new experience for me, considering I do this every single week, and I have for like 3+ years now. But it's such a different experience when I'm in the chat and not the one hosting it. And it's so much fun. I just get the biggest kick out of all of it, the questions and hearing other people's thoughts about things. And yeah, the chat is just a very different experience. Let's see. Oh, okay. That's a good question. Alyssa says, each time, okay, I think I'm missing part of the question. George, I'll do this and then I'll do your question, Alyssa. George says, while I was waiting for a very threatening 17-page letter, I came across your YouTube channel. I stayed silent, and then I got a letter saying he was wrong and please invite him back into my home. No, bye, guy. Well, good for you and welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Yeah, there's a lot of strength, I think, in numbers of realizing that you're not alone, that there's 151 people here right now that can all relate. And that's powerful stuff. So Alyssa says, each time I bring his items back to him, I still think I'm missing part of this. This last time he told me not to call or text him anymore, and he won't do the same, but he left a small bag of clothes at my house. Should I take them back to him or not? I would encourage you to find a third option there, which would be to drop those items to a neutral third party. So if you have some sort of mutual friend, the non-emergency police, some sort of person where you can be done with it, because I guarantee he's going to use that as a way to try to reopen contact with the excuse if he wants his stuff back, and then he's going to come over, and then it's just going to be boom, it starts up again, and it's just going to be the same stuff over and over and over again. So yeah, I would see what you can do to be done with it. And then if you need to change the locks, change the locks. And if you can block them. Just cut off contact is what we often have to do. I haven't. Carolina says, oh, well, thank you. She says, Dana, thank you for your dedicated work here and everyone for being courageously honest. It's helped me tremendously. She says, I am currently reading the book Attached by Amir Levine, MD, and Rachel SF Heller, MA. Have you read it? I find it very interesting. No, I haven't, and I've never even heard of it. So let me add it to my list. I tell you, there's so many things that I really enjoy about doing this, and the book club is one of them. And having the excuse to buy all of these books and read them I really like that. I love reading about this stuff. Okay. Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. I will check it out. You know, it's probably not too early for us to get started on a book club list for 2020. We have, I think, all the books for 2019, but start getting a list for 2020. We can put that one for 2020. Kristen, okay, says, I'm not sure if you've ever touched on this subject. When an abusive spouse passes away in the midst of when you are severing the relationship, now I'm left feeling with so much inside and feel alone in that. This topic has actually come up quite a few times, and it's a very valid one. And I can imagine the extra layer of confusion and emotion that would go along with something like that. So it's with the handful of other people that have brought this up over the years, they feel very much like you do. They feel very alone. They have a really difficult time reaching out for support because other people are like, why do you miss this person? You should be happy they're gone. They were so awful to you. So there's not that, it's sort of like when that happens, then like you're denied the ability to grieve. And what every single person has said when they've come in here that have experienced something like that, either their partner, the narcissist has passed away in the middle of them leaving or afterwards, or sometimes even years afterwards. There's this struggle with how to grieve, how to feel, how to grieve, how to get support from other people, these kinds of things. Just for the record, it's very normal to have a wide mix of feelings about something like this. And it's okay. It's okay to have that wide mix of feelings and to grieve the loss of the good things about them, to grieve the loss of just the closure, just all of it. It's a lot to just take in. So, yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. It's similar to people. A lot of people struggle when they leave the relationship. They feel terrible because they're like, what is wrong with me? Why do I miss somebody who treated me so terribly? And then they are really embarrassed about that. But the reality is, regardless of their intentions or their behavior or their ability to attach, it was a real relationship for you. And with real relationships and real connections come real emotions. So it's still very much grieving this loss of the connection that we thought we had with them, that the time and the energy that we did spend in this with them. All of this very valid. So, okay, let's see here. Camilla's talking about attachment theory. It says, she says, I think narcissists tend to be avoidant. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was Pete Walker. Somebody was talking about kind of the different defenses that get kicked off for a wide variety of reasons. And if I remember correctly, I think it was, okay, if a person, because we all have our default, the different defenses that we default into. So mine, for example, tend to be flight, mainly flight. I would say my primary one, flight or freeze. I will lose myself in a book, in TV, in sleeping. Sleeping is probably my number one thing with not dealing with something. So, or I lose myself in busyness. One of those ways is how I tend to deal with things. It's kind of thought, okay, well, at least this theory was, okay, if a narcissist, if their default is fight mode, then they're going to put up these walls where they're not going to be able to, intimacy of any kind equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals weakness, and weakness is bad. So there's just this, and again, for who knows what, if it was one event, if it was a series of events, if it was, they were just kind of born like this. Even though narcissism is thought to be something like a personality, some events have shaped a person's personality. There's so many factors at play, like, so it's difficult to say. The two, just for example here, the two main people in my life that I talk about on this channel, the two different sociopaths in my life, both of them, well, I should say one of them came from a really close-knit, loving family with awesome parents. And the other siblings are totally fine. And nothing, he was a compulsive liar, but according to things I'd heard from other people, there really wasn't anything that, like that you would think, like you'd think there'd be some sort of like horrific thing. It just, no, pretty average life. The other guy, had some, childhood issues, but his siblings are fine. His parents turned out fine. His mother had actually told his second wife, she pulled her aside when they got engaged. And she said, I just want you to know there's something wrong with him. He lacks the ability to love. His own mother said that about him. And she thought at the time, what a terrible thing for a mother to say. And then he proceeded to send her on this wild roller coaster over the next, 12 years with cheating and lying and deceit and craziness for a long time. So I don't know. But if a person, at the end of the day, if there is that avoidant, if they don't effectively bond to other people, because that's attachment disorder stuff, if there's not the ability to form an effective bond, that's just not there. It's not just with us, it's just across the board. So, some children, this kind of stuff in children, it tends to be diagnosed as like reactive attachment disorder. And then there's also a series of conduct disorders. That's kind of what, like the early signs of there's going to be some major stuff later on. Sometimes these children can get therapy and sometimes it works. And then other times it doesn't. So there's just so many unknowns out there. Yeah, Bonnie says that chills me to the bone. When a person lacks the ability to love, there's just no empathy. Yeah, it's just jaw-dropping. Like how where it's scary to even think that we could all possibly have that switch in us, and that something could happen to where that switch is just flipped. That to me that's terrifying. I don't know. Yeah, disturbing. Sydney says, my ex told me he moves on quickly, and he moved on while he was with me. Yeah. And that's because that's that lack of ability to form a sincere connection. They have really like shallow emotions. So you probably heard me talk about this, like their connection is like how they love ice cream, okay, is how they love a person. Like there's just this very like utilitarian connection. Oh, this can serve some sort of benefit to me. And I really love it. I love, oh boy, vanilla bean ice cream. That is the most amazing. It's so delicious. I love it so much. Like they're saying all of these things and these emotions tend to be there. But once that quits serving that need, or once they just get tired of it and they want strawberry ice cream instead, then they're over it and they don't look back. And that's really wild. I mean, you look at people like Chris Watts, you know, he killed his wife and his two children and one unborn child. Like, how do you do that? And just go on with your day. It's wild, but there's nothing there. I mean, if there's no guilt, if there's no remorse, there's no empathy, it's just, you know, life is just a series of jumping through hoops. There's just nothing there. Yeah. Surf Smurf says, sometimes I feel the switch is flipping. I go numb and I don't feel anything at all. And that is normal. So that's part of kind of this trauma response that happens. So it's also can be part of like that PTSD response. A lot of this stuff is, it's a very normal reaction to a very abnormal situation. And it does tend to settle down in time. But if it's been going on for, you know, any length of time, or if it's concerning to you, I would definitely go make an appointment with a doctor and talk to them about it. So I've heard people say good things about EFT therapy and EMDR as far as helping people process trauma. I have never personally gone through either of those. So if anybody else, all I can say, I've heard really great things from the vast majority of people about them. So if you've had a good experience about it, I would, for anybody here that's in the chat, I'd like to hear about it. But yeah, the numbness, the hypervigilance, the avoidance, the nightmares, the kind of ruminating thoughts where you think about the same things over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I would almost be worried about a person if they didn't have that. So, okay. Yes. Okay, scrolling up here in the chat. Huh. Meredith is saying, because I heard my clients did it, I realized EMDR therapy can help you control your vision after shock. I realize I don't have full vision after multiple shocks. Like I can't see things as they really are. That's interesting. I wonder what that's about. If it's a similar reaction, like how sometimes a person can go through something traumatic and they stop speaking. and they just don't, and it might be a week, it might be years. If the vision thing is part of that, it's, if the brain is such an interesting thing. I don't know. I should really go through a session of EMDR so I can kind of report back on it and what it was like. Because I think there is a lot of curiosity about it. I know it's something I've been curious about for a long time. So maybe I'll have to add that to the list. Things to do on this channel. Lee says, you are the first person I am requesting to be a guest on your channel. Are you talking to me? I'm not sure. I'm assuming you're talking to me. If you would like to be a guest, is there anything that you would like to talk about? Let me scroll down here. Okay, correct. Yes. Okay. Sometimes I hop in the middle of these chat conversations and I answer questions that are not directed at me. Lee says, I was married for 38 years to a narcissist. So would you like to share your story? Is that kind of what you were thinking? And I guess to everybody else, is that something that you guys would like for me to do? Would you like for me to kind of feature people and for them to share their story? I guess let me know. And then let's see, we'll address this and then we'll go into our guided meditation and call it a night here. Meredith says, Dana, can we one day talk about what we love as well for healing? I would really love to ask your opinions on certain things. I cannot finish healing on my own. I would love to be your guest in the future. Yes. Okay. She says, yes. And feature people and help them share their story. Yeah. Okay. Sydney says, yes, I would like to hear the stories. And Bonnie says, I think EMDR is good. And Hooray says, I do EMDR. So very cool. Let me think about how we could do that and how, let me make a note. Pen, where's my pen? There it is. I think if we do a video series of people sharing their stories, which I think would be really powerful, it'd be nice to have, I'm just thinking out loud, it'd be nice to have people to have like a wide range of like men and women and just a wide range of stories. So people, I just think it helps people to identify when they can hear stories that more directly speak to their experience. I almost wonder if it would be, if a good format would be if we had, let's say I came up with, I don't know, 5 questions or something. And then there was more of a format for like a guided interview. We could think about that. I could think of maybe 5 questions and then run them past you guys next week. And we'll see if we want it to just be like a total free form interview or if it's more structured. Meredith says, yes, it's easier like that. Is it easier with the 5 questions or easier with free form? Structured. Okay. Yeah, I think that might work best as well. Because there's so much to all of this that it's easy to not know where to start and not know where to stop and what to cover in between. Camilla says the call-in idea sounds interesting. Yeah, that's something else I need to add that to my list. My list is growing for next week. Okay, I like that. Al Card says, and maybe success stories as well. This, I think, will really help and give hope. I'm always worried I'll never get to a happy place in my future and a healthy partner. Okay. So, okay, let's see here. Okay, so with that said, let's settle into our guided meditation. Oh, good. Camilla says, I didn't know you did a guided meditation at the end. I usually have to go to sleep. I love guided meditations. Yes, let me just get some more tea here. So while I'm drinking my tea, find a spot and get comfortable, whether you're seated or laying down. Taking some time to get grounded in yourself and to be fully present in this moment. Taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly releasing it through your mouth. With each breath, drawing that oxygen deeper into the bases of your lungs, allowing your lungs to fill up with that healing, restorative oxygen. Easily and effortlessly breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Turning your attention inward until you can feel your heartbeat. Letting that heartbeat be your signal that you're grounding yourself, that you're turning inward and getting in tune with your body and being fully present in this moment. Now bringing your attention to the top of your forehead and easily and effortlessly and slowly making your way down, relaxing your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, letting your body sink in to your chair or your bed, relaxing your muscles, easily and effortlessly allowing any of that tension or anxiety to just dissipate. Relaxing your cheeks, your jaw, your mouth. Letting your jaw hang open and letting the tongue fall from the roof of your mouth. feeling your face as it's completely relaxed. Relaxing your neck. And again, letting any stress or anxiety just easily and effortlessly just dissipate and let it go. Almost like a smoke that's just kind of just coming off, going back into the atmosphere and reconnecting to everything that is good and right. Relaxing your chest and your shoulders. Feeling your chest open with each breath. And again, allowing each breath with that wonderful healing oxygen to travel deep down into your lungs, down into your stomach, allowing your whole torso to rise and fall easily and effortlessly with each breath. Relaxing your stomach. Feeling how it feels to have your body, especially your stomach and your shoulders and your forehead, relaxed. Letting that tension go. Bringing your attention back to your arms. Relaxing your shoulders, your upper arms, your forearms, your wrists and your hands. Allowing your hands to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable. And relaxing your fingers. Now again, taking your focus back to the beating of your heart. This time, noticing that not only do you feel your heart beating in your chest, but that you can also feel the pulse in your wrists. Bringing your attention down to your stomach again, down into your hips, allowing your legs to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Relaxing your lower back, your thighs, your calves, your ankles, your feet, and your toes. Feeling the full weight of your body as you completely relax. Being fully present in this moment. Let's take some time to be fully present in this moment, to pay attention or to at least notice the temperature around you. Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it just right? What are you hearing around you? Are there any cars going by or crickets chirping or people talking? Is there a TV on? What sounds are in your environment? Taking some time to feel what your body's touching right now. If it's a chair, if there's fabric on the chair, or if the chair is wooden, or if you're on the couch or on your bed, feeling what your comforter or your sheets feel like. Feeling your head if it's resting on a pillow. Feeling any different sensations that are around you. Fully present here in this moment. And in this moment, there is no anxiety about the future. There is no regret or sadness about the past. There's only this moment. Being fully present in this moment, knowing that you are safe, that you are not alone, and being fully present here. And continuing to breathe. Now visualize a light in the middle of your chest. Perhaps it's about the size of a flame on a candle. That's your inner light. It's what connects you to everything that is good and right in yourself and in the world. It's always there. And with each breath, visualize that light growing larger and larger to the size of a golf ball, a baseball, a softball, a basketball. Connecting to this light and realizing its healing, restorative power. And how beautiful it is to reconnect with everything that is good and right. And allowing that light to continue to expand up to your shoulders, your neck, and your head, down your arms, your back. Just easily and effortlessly, light growing and making its way through your body. Down your hips and your legs, all the way to the tips of your toes. Filling your body with that light. Now allowing that light to expand beyond the constraints of your body. That's easily and effortlessly coming out of your fingertips and your toes. It's expanding a few inches past the boundary of your skin, coming out through the top of your head. With the realization that this light is a part of you and it's a part of everything that is good and right. And that it is restorative and it's healing and it's peaceful. It is always there and you are always connected to it. Let's take a moment and visualize like a cord or a rope, something that's connecting you, sending that light and that love to others. Perhaps it's to people here in the chat that you would just like to send some of that light and love to. Think of it as kind of an energetic hug. So you're sending that light out to them. Or if it helps, you could imagine sending them an energetic hug. Just letting them know that they are valued and that they matter. And wishing them all of the light and love and happiness and healing possible. Let's do this for the next 7 breaths. Sending that light and love to them with complete gratitude and appreciation, care and concern. Sending out that warm, energetic hug. When you're ready, come on back. Give yourself a big, energetic hug. Letting yourself know that you matter and that there is so much that is right with you. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Come on back. Okay, so thank you guys so much for being here. And I will see you next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, we do this every week. So we are here. And Borgard says, happy Valentine's, everybody. Yes, I'd say happy self-love day, self-care day. So triple up on your self-care if today is going to be kind of an emotional day for you. And just be your own best Valentine. So you matter. There's a lot right about you. Just never forget that. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, everybody. Good night.